we would love for you to go ahead and turn your cameras on. We'd like to see you. We have a very special setup this evening with our hosts. However, we'd love your interactions, okay? What else? Yeah, if you have questions, at the end, we're going to have a question and answer segment. Leon and Rochelle are on their way. They are on their way, but our very able hosts are here to join us already. So just before we begin, Brittany is going to open us with a word of prayer, and then we will have our theme song. Okay?
Okay, let us pray. Definitely, Father, we are so grateful and thankful for the week that you have just through. We're here to fellowship and just learn and hear this wonderful testimony you have given. We pray that we will gain something from it and we will be deeper with you and learn and trust you more and more. Each and every one of us as we're here. I pray that we will send information to them on how to get and it's 9 today. And they will be Russia and Leanne even now as they're joining in Jesus' name.
Amen. I think we had probably a little bit of audio issues there. However, Jesus heard you, and we're gonna be blessed this evening. All right. Okay, so Leighton will have for us now our theme song, and I'll get right into introducing our hosts.
I pour my oil on your feet, anointing the one who's anointed me. I saved it all for you. I saved it all for you. I just wanna kneel and honor you, pour out my praise and gratitude. I saved it all for you. I saved it all for you. Seasons come and go, but I can't let go of this moment, holding you so close, telling you how much you're worth it. Everything I owe to you, and I will freely give it. I saved it all for you. I wanna make your memory of people that loved you with everything. I saved it all for you. I saved it all for you. All my affections not for sale. Jesus, you have it, always will. I saved it all for you. I saved it all for you. Seasons come and go, but I can't let go of this moment, holding you so close, telling you how much you're worth it. Everything I owe I saved it all for you. I saved it all for you. I saved it all for you. For you.
Brittany, are you there? Such a beautiful song, theme song. How do you feel that we've come to the end? We've come to the end of part 2 of this series. I don't know, guys, we had a part 1 to Lovers in the Valley, and it was so critically acclaimed. We had to bring it back. We had to do it again, and now we've come to the end of it. I don't know how blessed you were, but I like to say I shared it with my friends, especially my married friends, and I've been getting feedback that they have been so blessed by it, that it was so helpful, that it's such good topics. We've been getting good reviews, and I don't know how you feel about it. We're in the same boat as it pertains to our status, but I think that whether you are single, planning to be married, or you are married for a long time, I think that this series has been really a blessing to everyone, right? So you are gonna say, go ahead.
I'm not sure. Can you hear me?
I heard that.
Okay, I was gonna say that one thing that has been very common within everyone, all of the testimonies this season was the prayer life of everyone, how they prayed. We had the first person who prayed for her husband. Then we had individuals that continue to pray for having children and all of these things. So it just shows us that we need how important a prayer life is. So that was something that I personally took away from these sessions.
The prayer life, the couple that prays together,
Stay together.
we have with us our very able and wonderful hosts, a wonderful couple indeed. And for those who don't know, let me introduce to you Pastor Jason Edwards and his beautiful wife, Monique Edwards. They've been married for 12 blessed years. They are both hailing from Western Jamaica. They currently live and minister in Canada. They have two boys, Seth and Micah, and they have committed themselves to ministry with a focus on marriage and the family. They believe that homes should be safe and they should be sanctuaries. They are very Pastor Edwards and his wife is very passionate. They're very passionate about enriching families. They're very practical in their ministry, and they have made themselves available to support and help a lot of families and friends who are struggling because they believe in what they do. Pastor Edwards is a very able marriage and family counselor, and he and his wife do an excellent job running Lovers in the Valley here on Time Science. And so without any further ado, they're going to come now and present to us our final couple for this evening. I hope you are ready. Send the link to your friends. I promise you they want to miss this. Pastor Edwards and Sister Monique, good evening. Happy Sabbath. Hello.
Happy Sabbath.
Happy Sabbath, Time Science family. How are you doing? Good.
Yep. It's good to be back and at the end.
Well, I don't know how I feel about being at the end. It just feels,
I'm a little tired. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm like sad. I look forward to connecting with you guys on a Friday evening. Yeah. So anyway, what are we talking about tonight?
So tonight we are ending and we are
On a bang.
It's a big topic. It's a sensitive topic.
It is. So trigger alert.
Yeah, we have tried to deal with it in a manageable way.
Yes.
That it shouldn't be too overwhelming for anyone who has had experience in this area.
But it's still a very sensitive topic.
It's still very sensitive and kind of tabooed.
Yeah. Yes.
So we're not gonna say much. It's
Are we like gonna tell them what it's about?
yes,
Yes.
we're talking about intimate partner violence.
Yes. And our panelists, they live completely out of our time zone. So we
Mm-hmm.
had to get creative. We weren't able to interview them live this evening. So we had to interview them at a time in the day that was a time in our day that was their daytime.
Aligned with their
Yes.
schedule.
And unfortunately, I wasn't able to be in that interview. So we recorded it. It's just Jason interviewing them, but it's very, very rich conversation. We have
I
pre-recorded
hope.
it. Of course.
I'm not sure how I'll do without you.
You're modest. Yes. It's pre-recorded conversation. We'll share it with you and then we'll open the floor for some question and answer
As
and
much as
as
we
much as we
can.
can
And we
manage.
can still put the question and answers in the chat because
Yes.
it's an intense conversation
Yes.
and the questions are going to pop up along. So we ask you to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And our monitors will try to capture some as best as possible so that at
Absolutely.
the end we have at least a few to generate a discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a little lengthy, but it's the last one. So I hope you
Yeah, indulge us.
indulge us.
Yes, and while you're watching, if you think of anyone who you think, you know what, this person should absolutely be hearing this right
Yep.
now, just, send them a quick text message, whatever you want to do. Just say, hey, come on, this is on, and I think you should listen to it. So, yeah, thank you for joining us this evening, and we hope this is a challenge,
Yep.
an inspiration, and a call to arms as well for those persons who this topic may resonate with.
Yeah. We will be sharing our screen.
Yes.
I am not seeing like I'm in position yet for that sharing to happen.
Oh, we don't have any control.
No, I can share, but my video is not being spotlighted. I don't know.
Oh, right.
Cynthia, am I being spotlighted?
Yeah, you're spotlighted.
So,
There we go. Okay, perfect.
thank you. So, without further ado, we will connect you to recovery from
Intimate partner violence.
intimate partner violence.
And our panelists are Pedro and
Tara.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let me do that. And so, hello, Pedro and Tara. Thank you for joining us on our joining the Time Science family. And we are looking at intimacy warriors. And I would say, from the little knowledge I've gotten, that you guys are real OGs, real warriors in this thing, literally and figuratively. But we are going to get into that as we explore our subject tonight. We are actually doing our final episode. So again, want to say big thank you. We want the family to know that Pedro and Tara are coming all the way from UK. Hence, we have this pre-recorded episode tonight. So thank you for joining us, Pedro. Thank you for joining us, Tara. When I say OGs, you have been in this thing for 19 years and just celebrated your anniversary. Tell us a little bit about just how the journey started and overview of reaching 19 years.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So my name is Pedro. This is my wife, Tara.
Hi.
We're from the Heal My Marriage podcast.
Yes.
Thank you for having us, for letting us joining with you today. We met by chance. I happened to be living in Georgia. I was married previous, and we separated. So I moved to Georgia. And in the process of being in Georgia, my sister was in Alabama, so she's like, come work over here at UAB. I was like, yeah, it's something different. So went to UAB, and I had a niece that had a laptop, so I bought the laptop from her. I said, I'll give you the money when I get paid. So I was out on a date. And I get a phone call from my niece. She's like, "Hey, Uncle, I need that money." I had no problem. Meet me parking lot. I'll give you the money.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, go to walk to the car, and as I walk into the car, I see this beautiful thing here sitting in the car, and I tell all the time, and I tell people this. I've said it before. It was literally like it was literally a halo, and like her whole body just lit up. Like it was like the TV where it
Yeah, yeah,
literally
yeah,
like it really was like that. I'm
yeah.
dead serious. Like it just like it was like oh, like it was just and I was like yo. So
Man.
I was like, I got back to the car and I'm got my phone on the side. I'm like, yo, who is that? She's like, oh, that's my friend Todd. And I was like, I said to my dad, yo, I'm not feeling good. I need to take you home. So I took her home and I shot around and came right back to my niece's house and she was still there and we got to talking and exchanged numbers and I was still kind of dating somebody at the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was yeah, kind of yeah. So it was around Valentine's Day. So I went to Valentine's, spent Valentine's Day in Georgia, and then when I got back, then I was like, all right. Well, I kind of knew we was ending when I
Mm-hmm.
went. So it was kind of like the last. It was like to say goodbye. She just didn't realize I was saying goodbye. And when I got back to Alabama, called up Tara. We started talking, and about 2 weeks into us talking, I said, "I'm gonna marry you." She was like, "You foolish," and I was like, "You just don't know. I'm gonna marry you because at
Mm-hmm.
that point I'm 30, so I knew what I wanted. So when
Yeah.
I met Tara, I knew this is who I want.
Oh,
So I was
it
determined.
scared me. Oh my
Yeah, it definitely
gosh.
scared her, but yeah,
Man, that sounds overwhelming.
it was overwhelming for her. So I
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
to ease back some, but I just knew what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So I went full bore. I was just like, nothing was gonna stop me.
Yeah. Yeah. When
But
I saw Pedro, I'm sorry, go
yeah,
ahead.
go ahead. You go ahead.
No, I was saying when I saw Pedro, when I was with his niece, and I was like, "That's your uncle?" Because in my mind, I'm thinking, an older gentleman, uncle.
Mm.
Hmm
And
With
but when
like
I
three
saw,
teeth in his mouth.
yeah, and so when I saw Pedro, I was like, "Oh, wow, that's your uncle." And like he said, we met up at his cousin's house afterwards. He dropped
Niece,
his niece house, sorry.
cousin.
Mm-hmm.
And as we got to talking to each other, I just, we started getting to know each other
Hmm
as time went
Mm-hmm.
on. But Peter was very like, he's just always blunt and to the point, and that really it scared me off a lot
Mm-hmm.
when I met
You
Peter.
know, you know what's funny though, and I appreciate you saying you were in something, but it was ending because interestingly, few of the couples that we have brought on for this episode, and Vanique and I,
Hmm.
we were dating, and at the time we met each other for the first time, and we
Hmm.
were ending relationships simultaneously over the
Oh
period.
Wow.
wow,
So
wow,
I really now believe that sometimes God is ending one thing to bring forth life in another space.
Yep.
wow.
And yeah, so yeah.
I got one even better. I was still married.
Mm-hmm.
But I-
I didn't
but
realize it.
I didn't
So,
know he was still married.
because I had filed divorce papers before I left. So
Mm.
I
Mm-hmm.
thought the divorce went through. So I'm waiting for the paperwork to say, divorce is final. I get a letter that
Oh.
says, oh, the divorce, it was something wrong with the divorce papers. I need to
Mm-hmm.
resubmit or something. So I told my job I need to take 2 days off. And the very next morning, I got in my car and I drove straight to New York,
Mm-hmm.
bumped some money off my mom that I know she knew I wasn't going to pay back, and
Mm-hmm.
filed the divorce paper again, and then drove back to Alabama and drove back to Alabama
Yep.
because I was like, I'm not gonna start dating Tar, um, knowing that, and it was an honest mistake. She always says I
Mm-hmm.
knew I was still married.
No, I
I
know I
did
was
not.
because my thing was I ain't trying to mess up nobody,
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Oh
yeah,
no,
yeah.
no,
just
that
We
marriage
saying,
was done. That marriage
but
was done.
no, I understand, but I'm just saying, I believe in marriage. I, seeing my parents married
So do
for,
I.
not that you didn't. I'm just saying,
Hmm
I've
mm-hmm.
seen my
For the
parents
record.
married for over 35 years. I
Yeah.
just like, what, I ain't in it,
And mine was too.
Pedro, don't
Don't
get
act like
so
you're the only one that had a long
you're
marriage,
so sensitive.
thing. I'm so sensitive. That's right. When it comes to that, I'm sensitive because it shocked me. So I drove straight too. I didn't get no sleep. I drove
Yeah,
straight
I
up.
was shocked. I was like, "You finna go all the way to New York?" He was like, "Yeah." I was
Yep,
like,
just to file
"Okay."
paperwork. drove up, served her again, and drove back down.
To him,
But
for me, I was a little nervous about it because I was like, "Dang, he's still," because she was already, she was very persistent on her and Pedro, Pedro ex-wife and him getting back together. So I was,
mm-hmm,
in the dating stage there early on. I was just like, I told my sister-in-law, my brother's wife at the time,
mm-hmm.
that "Girl, I don't think it's gonna work out. I'm not sure what's going on with Pedro." And she was like, "Just hold on. He's a nice guy.
Mhm.
It'll work out. Blah blah blah." And so, I had to trust the process.
Yes.
But I think it's worth noting too, and I appreciate you just giving some context and clarity.
Yeah.
What I these days I say I'm an advocate for marriage,
Yes.
but I also say God permitted divorce, and he said it wasn't his original thing, but he did it because of the hardness of the heart.
Yeah.
And what I say now, Pedro, is that if you're in something and when you have put in all the effort and
Mhm.
you do your praying and you do your consulting with whoever,
Hmm.
and you recognize that sometimes there's hard-heartedness or whatever the reason, it's
Right.
in our interests, it's in God's honor to discharge ourselves from those sometimes dysfunctional arrangement.
Right.
And one preacher says, consult God on what he wants you to do next.
Mhm.
Right.
But I feel, even I think the church sometimes has failed where it has not sought to give good guidance, where people are in these broken, dysfunctional relationship, where, in my estimation, there's no life there. It's just
Wow.
death
Yeah.
and yeah. So I
You're the first person I
appreciate.
heard say that.
And you know what? I'm not to cut you off, but if you pay attention to people in church that are
Hmm.
in a dead marriage, you can sense it. You can see it.
Yep, yep,
You can
yep.
see it.
Everybody knows it.
I be in
Everybody.
the church and I'll be like, "Babe, they don't even look like they're married, but they don't look like because there's no connect. The connection is severed. You can see it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Mm.
So like and it's just you're just going through the motions. So
Yep.
I totally agree with you on that.
Yep.
Mm.
And there
I
are several
definitely,
things contributing to that, which is another conversation. So
It is.
yeah,
I
that's a whole
Mm.
nother
That's a
conversation.
whole nother conversation.
I appreciate you giving clarity on your foundation
Right.
because it's necessary that we properly discharge ourselves before we seek to engage.
Right.
And if we want God's blessing, and in light of what we understand about marriage, it's important.
Mm. Right.
So you met
Tara will
her.
tell you real quick. I made to cut you off. Tara will tell you when I tried everything with my marriage.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I went back and forth, and like you said, it just got to a point that the more we got back together, the worse. And I'm not going to talk negative about my marriage because it was part of my life that was supposed to happen to make me who I am today.
Hmm.
But is what you just it just was not. You get to a point where you just say, "Oh, this is not working."
Mm.
Yeah, we have to
You
call
just
in.
know you have to call. You just say, "Okay,
Yeah.
this is not going to work," because it can't keep getting worse. If it's
Hmm.
getting worse, you're like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, we got to call it. We may not want to, but we got to because I can't live unhappy,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
stressed. I can't live like that in my life.
Hmm.
So I definitely because I've actually been divorced twice. Thought I
Okay.
didn't. Sorry. First one
Hmm.
was I was young and we didn't communicate,
Hmm.
so it shattered in a couple of years.
Yeah.
Then I got remarried. I got married about a year after that, and it was good at first, but then it started to deteriorate over years, and like then we just like I said, it was just getting worse.
Hmm.
So it was
Hmm.
time to move on, and I really think God brought me through that to me, Todd. And that's why I say, like, I tell people I really did see a light. Like God was telling me, this is gonna be your wife. Like I'm
Right.
there. I really think I know God said to me when she was sitting in the car that God was like, this is gonna be your wife. Because
Well,
I really did see a light. I
well,
really did see a light.
I tell you, what do I say, Pedro? Where we are now, we have to be mindful of the reality of death.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
if death occurs, like if we lose a family member, we bury them.
Yeah.
We mourn them, we move forward. And I think we have not been rightly taught how to discern when a marriage has died.
Oh yeah.
How do we continue to live
Wow.
honorably
Mm-hmm.
and move to find new life?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
so today we have a lot of people just suffering and remaining in debt. It's like they're remaining in graveyards, whereas they could have move on, consult with God if you need to. Whatever your
Right.
conviction is, consult with God and let's do something differently. But this ongoing, just staying in this place of death, I don't see where that glorifies God or doing anybody any good. So that's it. But that means, Pedro, if you say you have gone twice before, you have defied several odds.
Yes.
You have defied several odds. And so I want you now, we want to talk a little bit about just what were the early years like? Tell me, because you have seen this beauty. I think you said within 6 months you were married.
Yeah, we met in February. We
Mm-hmm.
got married in October.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So February, literally like February 13th, we met,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
12th, and then we got married October 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
you
then
weren't
literally,
playing, man.
no, we was, and then literally was like she came over to the house because she used to sneak over to my house in the morning before she went to work because they didn't want her to come see me. So she was
Mhm.
she'll leave early. Said
Well,
I got
my
to be to work.
parents was
I
really
got to be to work
strict,
at 8,
by the way.
but she didn't even have to be to work till like
Oh,
so she'll come over in the morning, have breakfast with me. So
Mhm.
she came over one morning. I looked at her, I said, "You want to get married?" And she said, "Yeah." And that literally was, it was no like, will you marry me? Nothing. It was just like, you want to get married.
Mhm.
We literally went down to the courthouse, paid $25, got a $25 money order, and got married with the justice of the peace. The secretary, his receptionist secretary was our witness,
No, it was
and
a white gentleman,
but he was
actually.
the
What's the
reception.
secretary?
He was the judge's
Oh, okay.
assistant.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Doesn't matter if he's
so
white or black.
No, it doesn't.
so Tara, you just said something about your parents being strict. How did they handle that?
Oh man, I kind of tell Peter every now and then I kind of regretted that
I
I
do too.
didn't speak to my parents because I felt
Mm-hmm.
like they needed that much, because
Mm-hmm.
my parents really they expected so much out of me, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm a twin, so I had a twin sister and a brother, and
Oh,
so my father was ill. So, but when he was, really ill, he passed now, but he
sorry about that.
no problem. It's been what a long
Years,
time, yeah.
12 years.
It's
Wait,
Okay.
12 years now. But
Okay.
no, 15.
yeah. Oh wow, since little Peter,
Because Junior
right
was born, you was pregnant after he died,
after he
after he
died,
passed away. You got pregnant,
2009,
yeah.
right,
So
Mm-hmm.
16,
right.
yeah.
But I regretted telling my father and my mother because I knew they probably wanted me to have a wedding
Mm-hmm.
and to do it the traditional way.
Mm-hmm.
And but at that time when I made the decision, my parents, my father per se, didn't like that Pedro was so older than I was. Because my father,
Okay.
when he met Pedro, he was like, he a man that know what he wants. Are you ready for this? And he been
Mm-hmm.
married before, he got children, he had a life before you. So, he went through all of those scenarios with me. And I was like, well, Dad, I thought, I really care about him. I really like him. But I think he was just more fearful of that, me being ready to become a mother, onset mother,
Mm-hmm.
um, to his children, and understanding the battle that it was going to be between him and his ex-wives, and understanding that struggle, what it was. Because honestly, I didn't know what I was getting in bed with at the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I just knew I was just in love, and I just wanted to be with Pedro. And so my
Mm-hmm.
dad was pretty much trying to lay out I guess
The
all the
The
red
groundwork.
pros
flags.
and the cons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when I did that and got married, and I went to work after we got married, and I went to my father's house, I was so nervous to go inside the house to let them know, look, okay, I said, Peter, okay, I think I'm ready. Let's go in. But when I went and walked inside the bedroom, my father was sitting inside of his chair. Um, and it was his dialysis day. So, because my father had renal failure. So,
Okay.
when he was sitting inside the chair, and I told them, they cried. They
Yeah.
cried and cried, and I cried, and
Nah,
it made me emotional because I'm just like, I should have just told them what I wanted.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
nah, to my defense, I did feel bad, and I have felt bad about it. But when I think about it, I've said this to my wife that I think that was the way we did it was the best way to do it
Mm,
Mm-hmm.
because we had went and said we want to get married. we wouldn't have got married.
Right. Because they
Something
Mhm.
would
didn't
have
want
it
us
would
to get
have
married
it
yet.
would have been just heck and hell to do it. And there's nothing against them. They were trying to protect their baby.
I
So
was
I totally
21
get
years
it.
old,
I
so
totally get it. It wasn't like I'm
yeah.
mad that they would have, but I just know that wouldn't happen. I think after we got married and he got to know me, the father understood where I was coming from, and
Mhm.
then he knew that I was gonna take care of her. He just had to get to know
Mm.
me. Once he got to know me, he saw that I was like serious about her and that
Yeah.
I was whatever because I like I think we was talking before we started this conversation. I set boundaries. My boundaries was Tyler never had to deal with my ex-wives in a negative way.
No, I didn't.
I
Mhm.
never put her in a position that made her uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mhm.
never put her in a position that made her have to do something she didn't want to do or make her feel like she was second fiddle. She was always number one.
Mhm.
She was number one, came to my mom. She was number one and came to my ex-wife. She was number one and came to my children. I
Yeah.
set my two boys down and I told them, this is my wife now. You may not like her, but you're going to respect her.
Mm.
And if you
Mhm.
don't respect her, then you and I are going to have a problem. So,
Mhm.
like, I set those boundaries right off the bat. So when Tara came in, even at 21, and she was unsure what was going on, because
Mhm.
I'd been through it kind of before, it helped me to know exactly what to do, how to set the boundaries, how to make sure that she was, always sure that she was number one in my life, you know?
I I appreciate you giving again those clarifying the situation because I tell you this, Pedro. I know realize, and you may have felt away, Tara, but I know realize that regardless of the things in your specific circumstances that would have caused your parents to want to push back,
Right.
the the interesting thing is that today there are parents who are pushing back for all kinds of different reasons. And there are young people and even grown people who are not able to make that distinction
Right.
and to push back on their parents.
Mm-hmm.
So you have, both of you have said you would have done it differently. And that's for you, that's your personal thing. But I want to highlight in this moment that it's also important that sometimes young adults have to make that call because if we rely solely on our parents, there are some decisions we'll not make because they'll never give their approval for whatever reason.
That's
Hmm.
true.
And
Yeah.
and
I
it's a
respect that everything.
nuance thing, and it's a nuance thing because some people make decision and it doesn't work out.
Right.
And
Right.
some people make the decision, take the risk, and it worked out. But I say to person, what's God saying to you? Because we are also doing the honorable thing the right way, and it doesn't always work out.
Right.
Hmm.
So when we
Right.
take those risks, I think we shouldn't just be afraid because it might not work out. Is what is God saying? And recognizing sometimes when our parents sometimes may be prejudiced for different reasons,
Right.
regardless of what God is saying to us. And I think that's a critical piece to highlight.
Yeah.
Well, what you just said is so true, but I would differ on one thing. You said, I don't regret what I did because
Hmm.
I always say, I don't regret nothing I've done. Everything I've done had a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
God had me, God showed me what to do, and I listened to God. And
Hmm.
that's why I got impressed to just say to that morning, you want to get married? Because it
Mm-hmm.
just came over me. Like we was
Hmm.
just sitting there having breakfast, and I said, you want to get married? Because I knew that if we I didn't want to live in sin. I didn't want to be living with her or, coming, I
Hmm.
just didn't want to, I wanted to make it official. So I was like,
Honorable, honorable.
let's make this honorable. Let's make this official. Let's make you my
Hmm.
wife. So you
Good.
are mine and I am yours. And we
Amen.
are one together.
Right.
So I was like, let's do this. So like, I don't regret. I
Hmm.
just, it would have been nice if he was able to do
Approve.
it. But I just know that the way we did it was the right way.
Right.
All right.
It
Well,
was
I'm
all
there
about
with you, man.
it was all about our happiness. It was about her happiness and my happiness. The
I
stress
am.
that the stress that Tara would have been put under
Hmm.
if we had said, "Oh, let's have a wedding," would have broke
Hmm.
her.
Yeah,
At
yeah, yeah,
20, at
yeah.
that age, it would have
Hmm.
broke her, and I know would have broke her, and I would have ended up probably telling off some people in not the nicest way.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
to make life easy, I just said let's do it this way, and then what's that word? How they say you do things and beg for forgiveness later.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
like we did it, and then we asked for forgiveness after we did it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
kind of what process that I had in my head. So
Yeah.
I don't regret it, but yeah, we could have did it differently. But the way we
Okay.
did it worked out perfect for us.
All right. And I want to underscore that too because we are learning about this. And I think as men, sometimes we are at a place where we're still finding ourselves. And if people were to give us their approval, there are some things we would never do.
Oh
Right.
yeah,
Right.
definitely.
And
If we
I knew that with
yeah,
my parents,
yeah.
because and especially my mom, she had, and not that it's bad, but I had a lot to do with, within my family, helping my sister, helping my father,
Mm-hmm.
his siblings, my mom. It was just a lot going on at the time. And
You were sacrificing your own health. You were sacrificing your own happiness for their happiness. Let's call it for what it is.
in a way, that's what it was.
Call it
Yep.
for what it is. And there's nothing wrong with it. But you mentioned it earlier. You said that you do things based on what other people are feeling. And so
Mm-hmm.
Tara would make herself available even if she didn't want to be available to
Mm-hmm.
make them happy.
Yeah.
Like if just things in general, so yeah. So she
Mm-hmm.
just would do things just to keep the peace,
Yeah.
even if she was unhappy.
All right. So that is giving us some good context and some valuable lessons too, because a lot of young adults today and even older adults are not able to make that distinction or
Right.
set those boundaries with parents. And I think it's paramount what you're saying, especially when
Right.
you sense God is putting certain convictions in your hearts to go in a certain direction. And I've seen challenge with different people. So what you're saying is so valuable. So you got married. They were not so much in agreement. How were the early years? Like, how was that piece?
Well,
Rough.
yeah, it wasn't too bad.
It was rough.
It wasn't, well.
It was rough. Call it for what it is. Listen, our marriage we loved each other and we wanted
Mm-hmm.
it to work. But we was just trying. The problem is that because she was 21, she was immature.
Mm-hmm.
And it is nothing against her. She was immature. She didn't like if I did something, she wasn't there yet in understanding to trust her husband.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a lot of pushback because she just thought, oh, it's not gonna be it's not gonna be this way, it's gonna be that way. Like if I said it's gonna happen this way, she was like, no, it's gonna happen this way. She had in her head, she was being a little stubborn and we're doing some things.
Mm-hmm.
So if I did something, she would question it more because she thought it was the wrong decision instead of just trusting the process, as she said earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So the first couple of years, yeah, it was good, but we definitely had some real rough spots. She had in her mind for the first probably 5 years that I want to be with my ex-wives.
I did.
Mm-hmm.
For the longest, she had in her head that I just
think-
want that I was gonna go back. She just
I
had in her head, no matter what I did, said, do anything, she just knew I was going back to my ex-wife and I was gonna leave her.
I just had a lot of insecurities. And to be fair, I did because I was like, how, what, he'd been married before, what now what's my turn? How
Mm-hmm.
can I deliver, and be the wife that he needed me to be? Yeah, and just getting used to the fact that his past was there. I think I just had to, in my mind, had to understand it.
But I did everything.
It ain't that he did that you
we went
did
to New
anything
York. Remember that
wrong.
time we went to New York and you said you don't want them to know I was there? And I didn't tell nobody that I was there.
No, I understand that,
And
but
we was there for like 2 weeks and nobody knew I was in New York.
I know.
To this day, well, they may know now if they see this, but to this day, they did not know that I was in New York. We stayed at my mom's house.
Yeah.
And nobody knew we was there.
Yeah, I know that, but still.
Because I was making sure that you got what you needed to make you comfortable.
I know that, but I had to become comfortable on my own.
That's true. That's true.
So no matter how much Pedro tried to push, because Pedro can push even now. And I just like Pedro, just relax. Let me take on
so
to this
untrue.
on my own.
That is, I'm pushing back on that. So untrue. Because when we first, and the other thing too, the dynamic that we had in our first 5 years was that we was not of the same denomination.
We wasn't.
She was Baptist, I was
Okay.
Adventist. When we
Okay.
got married, she was Baptist. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I never once pushed her or tried to steer her towards Adventism
Mm-mm.
or to Christianity or however you want to put it. I never like
Mm-hmm.
said you become saved Adventist like me. We
Mm-hmm.
for the first 5 years we literally were of different religions. We loved the Lord and God was our sole purpose, but
Mm-hmm.
we was not of the same. We was not like minded in some things.
Mm-hmm.
She still thought that it was kind of that Adventism was kind of cultist, and I was even in a bad place in that sense. I had kind of walked away from the church a little bit, and I was
Mm-hmm.
kind of thinking that it was kind of cultist, like a cult, like. And so we kind of used to joke about that and make jokes and things. So we would go to church on Sabbath, and then we would go to church on Sunday.
Mm.
We was going to church like like both weekends, all weekend. We was going to
Yeah.
church.
Because I
Oh,
was
okay.
strongly into the church. So my
Right.
family, my mother was a musician, my father was a deacon in the
Yeah,
church.
and so I was
Oh,
trying to
okay.
get her used to the Adventist
Yeah.
church. So I would take her, and that was an adventure because I would she would dress the way she normally dressed for Sunday church,
Right.
which is
Mm-hmm.
not really the Adventist way.
Mm-hmm.
So we would go and they'd be looking like, and I'd be like, "This is my wife," and they'd be like, "Oh," So
Mm-hmm.
they took a minute, but once they
Yeah.
got to know us, everything was good. But
Mm-hmm.
so that was another dynamic in the beginning of our marriage that we had
Right.
that like was a good because in all honesty, like believe it or not, even though she was an Adventist,
Mm-hmm.
her faith in God brought me back to God. If that makes sense. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it was weird because I kind of walked away. I was kind of just like doing my own thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then when I met Tara and we got married, like her faith in God and her love of God made me love God more and love God again and bring God back
Mm-hmm.
into our marriage and stuff because I realized I need to get back in tune with God because I saw how much she loved God.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we wasn't of the same belief
Right.
in denomination, our love for God was the same.
Mm.
Well,
And
not
that,
mine, right? Mine not at first, but definitely
yeah.
hers.
And that's where we now talk about the orbiting dynamic. So when we come together, sometimes the distance we are from we are not necessarily the same distance from Christ in that orbit.
Mm-hmm.
And we are not necessarily that close to each other. But as we make the the Spirit of God move on us, as we respond to the other person, that orbit starts to close. That orbit starts to close. And we see it back often. Sometimes it's the husband that draws the wife or helps the wife to elevate spiritually, but sometimes it is the wife that helps the husband to elevate spiritually.
Oh,
So,
definitely,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
definitely.
And
I
that's
mean,
biblical.
Yeah.
my father's a pastor. My mother's a Bible worker, and so
Ah.
my mother was in the Northeastern Conference. She was a Bible worker for many years, one of the top Bible workers. So I knew I've been to Daniel Revelation seminars. I've been to Adventist Facts seminars. I've been to
Mm-hmm.
Crusades. I've been to all that stuff. So I knew, you know, about God. I knew about the Bible. I knew what I was supposed to do. But
Mm-hmm.
I reached a point in my life where I just gave up for whatever reason. I
Mm-hmm.
can't even tell you why. I just was like I just wanted to do my own thing. So I kind of just stepped away for a minute, was doing my own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And meeting Tara was definitely the best thing that brought me back to God because I just seeing the way she loved the Lord and the way she prayed and the way she focused on us. And even though we was in our first couple of years of our marriage, the problems we was going through, she just kept pushing and saying, God is gonna make this right. It just made me to appreciate and just to realize I gotta get my game back and God
Mm-hmm.
back into my life. And if I want to be with this woman, she loves the Lord. I need to love the Lord again. So I had to, um,
Elevate.
yeah, and
Yeah.
part of and well, can I say it? Because like part of it was that I got deported when we first got married. So we got married
Mm-hmm.
in 2005,
Mm-hmm.
and in 2009 I got deported.
3 years.
During
Mm-hmm.
that deportation, I had plenty of time to read the Bible. So that made me
Mm-hmm.
we was having Bible studies in prison, and it made me just really like get my thought process back. It kind of God like kind of smacked me and said, "Okay, you need to get back, come back to me." So he smacked me, and then I realized I was going off the wrong path, I was really angry. My life was I was just angry all the time. I was just mad for nothing, no other reason, but just to be mad.
Yeah.
And that's when I really, so about 4 years, that's when I really started to, like you said, come closer to the orbit with my wife when it came to God.
Ah. So what was happening on that side in that period, Tara? What was it like for you, especially I'm thinking now, especially because you would have gotten married and your parents were not in agreement, and now you are married and I'm imagining it feels like this is not working. How
Oh, definitely. When we first got, when we got married, it was kind of, I think it was going pretty good. We had went to what, Bermuda for
Honeymoon
our honeymoon
in
and stuff.
2007.
But when we got back, it was, reality.
hmm
And it was there, and my parents, they'll come over and visit and stuff. We were just trying to get used to being a wife, getting used to understanding what all of it mean. And because you can talk about being married and all of that stuff and having a wedding, but it's actually living it. And
hmm
as the days went, just learning how to trust Pedro, trust our marriage, like what's going to come out of this, like is this going to be hard, like how am I going to, first time meet his kids, how's that going to be, is they going to accept me, or what is it going to be? That was hard for me mentally. I had a hard time trying to adjust to what the marriages was going to turn out to be, because like Peter was still had a he like he said before, he had the hook that his ex-wife had in him really took a toll on our marriage early on for me. And I used to get upset about it, but how she called, he- and he just did whatever she wanted. So that was just kind of hard.
Wait, put the context to that,
Okay,
please.
do whatever she wanted him to do in the sense of being connected to his son.
Thank you.
hmm
So,
hmm
'Cause I wasn't trying to be
okay.
connected to her. I just say put the
Okay,
context
really
because
Yeah,
quick.
yeah,
somebody be
yeah,
like,
Okay,
"Oh
yeah.
wait,
sorry.
he was married, but he still loved his ex-wife." No,
No,
I
no, no,
didn't love
no.
my ex-wife.
No,
I was
it
doing.
wasn't that.
She did.
But no,
She.
what the hardest part was seeing Pedro wanted to connect with his son, but couldn't.
hmm
You know what I'm saying? But the thing, but
mm
because she wanted that connection with him, the way he was doing it was not the right way. I liked it. I was like, you
hmm
don't have to
hmm
do this because because your son, you don't have to do what she's saying, or act a certain way just to do this. So it was hard to navigate through that, because I was like, well, how are we going to do this? So that was the hard part to
Wait,
do.
hmm
We argued a lot about it.
didn't I listen to you though?
You did later.
I not at first, but I did.
Later
I actually
on,
hmm
listened to my wife.
at some point
Best
later.
decision ever made in my life.
it,
hmm
it it
Best
was hard.
decision ever made in my
I
life.
think we had a real bad argument one time about it. And I think that was the first time Pedro ever became
Abusive.
abusive towards me. And that
hmm
was like, whoa, like, wait a minute. You
hmm
just like, what is this?
Is that when I broke my hand?
I can't remember exactly on that, but I just know this first time you put your hands on me. And
And then broke my hand.
it really took me into a really bad space for myself, because I was like, wait, this ain't how it's supposed to be. This is not the Pedro I know. This
hmm
is not the Pedro I was dating.
Yeah.
Because I never seen that part of him. Not the anger. And when I saw the anger on him, I was like, yo, this can't work. I think I cried and cried
Yeah, I
the
think part
first
of it is
day.
I think it was you said something like I don't know, you just said something that was not negative, but you just like forget it or forget them, or it was something like that. And I just felt like she didn't want me to have a I was so intent to have a relationship with my son. I was almost putting my son before my wife. Not
mm
intentionally, but unintentionally. Subconsciously I was doing it. And I
hmm
had and so whenever we had the argument and she said what she said, I thought she was like saying, like screw your son. So I just got
hmm
so upset and I just lost my cool, and that's when I was
I went
abusive
in
towards her.
right. I went into the bedroom, and I was like, okay, what should I do? I'm thinking to myself, what should I do? Should I tell my father, because he's still alive at the time? Should I tell my family?
hmm
And I was in there talking to God and myself, and it's for some reason God was like, don't tell your folks. And because I knew if I did, there would have
Mm-hmm.
been an out. There would have been an
Mm-hmm.
out for me. It would have been
Mm-hmm.
an out, and my parents would have been like, "No, you leaving, you going."
They would have been up there the next morning.
Mm-hmm.
It would have ended it all, you know. And some just told me, don't say anything. That was, and I didn't. My parent and my mother, sometimes I feel like she can read me, so
Mm-hmm.
most
Mm-hmm.
times if I'm going around her, I have to be in a good spirit. I couldn't show any type of thing, but just because my mother already had her feel about it. So I didn't want to. I told you so. I knew it wasn't gonna work
Mm-hmm.
out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I knew he was like this, and I was like, I'm not fit to fail. I don't want my marriage. This is my first marriage. I don't want it to fail for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
want this to work. And I told Peter how I felt. I was like, I don't know what's going on, but it was not something that I was like, this is not what I signed up for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I don't want the man that I'm in love with to hurt me. Like what's this? And it wasn't that it was every day, but the fact that it happened,
Yeah.
it just took me to another a space where I
Another
was
space.
just like, wow, like
Mm-hmm.
it can't continue. So it's some months was good and some months wasn't.
Yeah.
And when it wasn't good, it was hard.
So I'm curious, Pedro, because here it is. We know, unfortunately, sometimes when a marriage is struggling with a third party, it's because of intimate desires or bad influence. In your case, that's not what's happening. But we are now dealing with the responsibility of another child. You're co-parenting.
Hmm.
And this is taking a toll. It's taking a toll on your wife who is stressed by the interaction, whatever the dynamic is. As you have said, the maturity may was taking time to grow. But we also see where you're at the place now where you're tipping in a sense based on her response. As you
Hmm.
look back now, how would you encourage someone to navigate that? Because this conversation is necessary because we are not always dealing with the ideal, and people
So
have to be
for
working through these things.
Right.
definitely for me, I said she gave me the best advice, and that was to just let my son go. And I know that
Mm,
sounds mean, but I had to because my ex was using him so much to get the thing. I had to let him go.
hmm.
I had no contact with my son for years, literally years, and
How
it was
old he
like I would
was?
call.
He
Oh
was young
Lord,
at the
he
time.
was 9, so I would say probably his his teen years, his between 10 and 20. We had no contact,
Mm,
like literally no contact, very limited contact, and it was I to this day I still say it was the right thing to do because
hmm.
I had to wait till he got older where he can understand because part
Hmm.
of it was too that he thought me and his mother was going to get back together, and because he was getting such mixed signals, it was confusing him. So
Mm,
I had to sever ties completely. My first ex-wife, we had a good relationship,
Yeah,
so
she was.
we could talk to each other and stuff. So
Mm,
we didn't really talk to each other that much, but when we talked, we wouldn't talk about to each other negatively. We would talk to each other politely.
hmm.
But it's like it wasn't that it was
his
really
first wife was solely on raising their son together.
yeah
You
Hmm.
know what I'm
right
saying? And she was
co-parenting
respectful, and I was
yeah.
respectful of her. And I was respectful of the other one too, but she was just hard to deal with.
Look how you said
Hmm.
that. Yeah, so
No,
my second
seriously,
ex-wife,
that's
it was I
facts.
don't know. She wasn't rude about it, but she wasn't polite about it either.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like she gave like the indications, like you'd be like, dang, like really gonna be like that, But like I said, I just had to let it go. And Tyler said you're gonna have to just let it go. So when I realized that how much it was affecting her, and I let it go, it allowed us to grow closer, together. And the
Hmm.
arguments they was having about that ended
Hmm. Hmm.
because now there was no longer that dynamic that was there before.
Yeah.
So it allowed
But
us to focus. It allowed us to focus on each other and on our son Junior, and just thing. But then it I don't know if subconsciously I started to resent her a little bit for making me do it
Mm-hmm.
because then I was still angry.
Yeah, he was angry
Yeah.
at me.
Yeah,
He was angry at
and
me.
I wasn't. It's not that I was trying to be angry at you. I just think subconsciously, so it was like it was so many different stages we was going through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's why my insecurity was growing from that point because I'm like, how, I wasn't trying to do that. I
And no,
didn't want to do
I
that.
never blamed you for it. I
Right.
said that was on me. It was all
Hmm.
on me to do it. It was just my brain just that's the way I navigated too.
But then I
You know,
realized Prejo never really gave himself time to heal and get that situation sorted before we got married, to be honest with you. I felt like,
Mm.
it ain't that, and sometimes I'm like, maybe we would have waited just a little bit longer before we got married, just to see what his mindset was, because he wasn't ready for another marriage,
Mm-hmm.
not with me yet. After I didn't see that until after we got into our marriage.
I disagree
Honestly,
because I always tell you that everything that happens for a reason.
I understand
No,
that.
wait, let me finish.
Hmm.
Let me finish.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think that it was good for us because now we have a story to tell.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's as hard as it was and as rough as it was, we wouldn't have the story to tell. I feel like like when people come, you talk to somebody and they say, "Oh, I know how you feeling."
Mm-hmm.
We really do know how you're feeling because there's a lot that we've been through that we can say, "Oh, we had that same issue or we had that
Yeah.
same problem,"
Hmm.
Yeah.
and we can actually give an honest opinion about something where we say this is, and when we give an opinion, we don't give an opinion of like telling you what to do.
Mm-hmm.
We just
Mm-hmm.
tell you what we did,
Give.
and we always
Yeah.
say
Okay.
what we did not doesn't mean it's going to work for you.
Mm-hmm.
We're
Mm-hmm.
just giving you opinion about what we did and how we worked through it.
Right.
And I just
Okay.
think that it just allowed us to grow as a couple.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
just it was just the path that God had us to go down. God is not always going to have it, rosy and diamonds and pearls. It's
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's going to be rocks and fire.
Yeah.
And you got to
And I
go
Mm-hmm.
down to the
and I
depths.
dealt and I dealt with trust issues, for a while because of
Mm-hmm.
it. And I was just like, most times I'm like, I just don't know how really in he is. Like, how, like how he gonna commit to me. Is he really committed to me?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
Even though I was showing it, she still didn't believe it.
I didn't.
But
I think
but but
the letter really irritated me for a long time.
Okay.
but I think some of the dynamic you were experiencing, these are dynamics that are experienced by the average couple.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Taking time to win confidence, taking time to build trust. But when you have third party to navigate through, that becomes a whole different piece in the mix.
Yeah. Hmm.
I appreciate too what you said, that you listened to your wife and it was the best advice. Again, not a lot of people recognize the how to navigate this dynamic when you have a past relationship and you share a child and the person is pawning the child in that dynamic.
Right.
The safest proven way to deal with it is to let it go.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when you're a person of faith, to let it go and trust that, pray for that child. Pray that God will preserve a space in their heart. But the ongoing back and forth, especially when it becomes so visible that the child is seeing that,
Right.
that's not helping. So
Mhm.
that is not only applicable, I would say, for you in marriage, it's applicable if someone is even not married. Because when one parent is pawning the child, I tell you the effect it can take. It's
Mm.
crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It will ruin your mind. But so thanks for just
It
sharing
can ruin the
that.
child too, because then the child could
And
not like the other person
mhm,
going forward, and then because they have this warped sense of reality of the person that is not true.
mhm.
So
So
I had to let my son make his own decision,
yeah.
and one day we just had a conversation, and I laid everything out for him, and he said okay, and then I just let him make the decision if he wanted to be back in, if I was
Mhm,
allowed back into his life. So he allowed me
mhm.
back into his life.
Good. Good. God be praised. So you said a piece that I know I think the audience may be saying, what did he do? And we get some context to it because whenever there is what we call, now they label it as intimate partner violence,
Right.
It's not always indicating that someone is evil or means or intends to mean harm.
Right.
It's just that people are going through stuff and that stuff is not managed well. So, and
I know where you're going with it.
Go ahead.
yeah, people are, so yeah. So, what was, when you look back, hindsight 2020, what was really happening on a deeper level for you? Why you feel that happened
With the so
with that
I always
first
tell people,
incident? And
yeah,
then
I
we'll,
always tell. I snapped when what she said about
mm-hmm.
about my son, but I think I got to a point where I
I'm
started
not
doing
hearing you.
things. Oh, you not hear me?
Hello?
Can you hear me now? Yeah. So when my wife said that about my son, I think I got to a point where I got so frustrated because I thought I was showing her that I was there for her, that she was my one and all, she was number one, and because she was so insecure about the relationship, I
Mm-hmm.
just got so frustrated that I think I became abusive because I was trying to get rid of her. Like I was trying to like just I didn't so if she left, then I could say well, I did everything I could.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, and I know that sounds thing, but that was my thinking.
I actually thought you was more trying to be a controlling person.
No, I was really trying to get rid of
That's
you.
just what I thought
I know that
from my
that's what, yeah,
perspective.
from your perspective, it looked that way, but no, I was trying to get rid of you.
Mm.
I was trying to be like, if you go to the States and you just stay, okay, you stay. I may be hurting for a while, but I'll be okay.
Mm.
And now I don't have to deal with all the stress or you not believing me, you're not trusting me, you're not, understanding what I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing, you're not, trusting the process. So that was part of and then I was still angry and mad about a lot of things. I was still mad and angry about. I probably was still mad and angry about being deported. It was just so many different things that was going through my head, but I know for a fact that was one of the main things that um, why I became probably more unlikable or abusive towards my wife. It was intimately why we was fine.
Mm-hmm.
We was being intimate with each other. We was fine that way. This having sex was not an issue.
No.
It was other things. Like for us, big things, it wasn't even big things. Big things we can handle. It was the little things that got us all bent out of shape. Just a little,
Mm-hmm.
it would be just the littlest of things. It'd just be the one little statement, comment, one word, one look, one,
So there's a
rolling
lot of
of the eyes.
frustration.
Yeah, just one rolling of the eyes, just
Right.
one, or whatever. And that was the cause of the whole. Like we get into a discussion, and she'll say whatever, and it just blew up into like an explosion.
Mm-hmm.
But if we was having a discussion and it was more cordial, and it was just more, not even if we just had and it got really heated, but it was just a weird thing because I always wondered that, like the little things, it was always the little things, never the big things.
I think for me, from the first encounter of being hit by you or being
Mm-hmm.
abused by you, really caused me to question everything. So most times I'm like, why? Or I don't feel comfortable with this. So everything was I just didn't feel right. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what Pedro felt like I was never listening to him because I'm trying to like, you love me, but you're not showing it. You know what I'm saying? You couldn't love me and you hurting me at the same time. It's no way you do. So I questioned it a lot.
So,
Questioned it.
Pedro, so give us some context as to like how long, because you mentioned the first incident, what time frame we're looking on where this was a part of the interaction.
Oh man, that was Alabama, that was Georgia.
Yeah, when we start living
So
in Georgia, it
we
got
lived in
worse.
Georgia. Then we moved to New York,
Hmm.
and then we had Junior, And then it wasn't really that I was abusive towards you. I was abusive to other things like breaking the TV and
Right.
things like that, breaking my hand.
Mm.
Then we moved to Bermuda.
He just had a lot of anger
We just
issues.
had a lot. I just had a lot of anger issues. Then Bermuda. So I would say a good 7, 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was going. It was to the point that we would, because Tara sang in the choir in the praise team, we would have an argument on Sabbath morning. I mean, a breakdown, knock it out, argument and abusive argument.
Mm-hmm.
And I would take her to church, drop her off, and she's up in the pulpit, and she's singing, and nobody even know, none the wiser that we just had like the worst argument or fight that a couple can have. Like we
Mm-hmm.
we literally we was hiding it. It almost became where it was second nature, where we didn't. It just was, it was just there, and we wasn't addressing it,
Right,
Mm-hmm.
because
and it was just getting worse and worse.
right, because talking to Pedro, I felt, in my opinion, talking to Pedro was hard. Talking to him, like everything was an argument.
Mm-hmm.
Everything. He was like a ticking time bomb. Just like everything.
He was
Just
walking on eggshells.
yes, every single time. And if I say anything out of place, it's like, and to the point where I became fearful at some point sometimes. So I'm like
Mm-hmm.
really gonna, like don't get in my space, and most times he did. And I didn't like it. And that was the hardest part.
So now my question, because we actually had a discussion the other day about
Mhm.
this. It ended when she came to me and said, if you do not stop doing this,
Mhm.
I am really, like, she just got fed up.
I told Pedro, if you don't stop being the way you are towards me, I'm gonna be done. And I didn't
And,
want to be done, really.
and this
I,
was you, and this was Tara after leaving. What this was after leaving 5 times.
oh my
Yeah,
gosh,
I mean,
yes.
like I said, it's it's 3 or 4 times. 'Cause we left. We was in Georgia. No, we was in New York. You went back. You went like twice while we was in New York. So
Mhm.
each year you
Mhm.
went twice.
Mhm.
Before, yeah, once Junior was born.
I
Then we
went
moved
back a couple
to
of times in Bermuda.
it was, and then I think her mother knew
Mm-hmm.
Something was going
something was
on.
going on, because I mean, one time we was in Bermuda. We had just moved. We got into the worst fight ever. We got, not, I wouldn't say the worst fight ever, but we got into a fight, and I think I broke the lamp. And all of a sudden, I hear a door, like, we had a gated community. I
Mhm.
hear down, like, a hello, like, hello, hello, and I go outside on my patio, and it's the police.
Mhm.
Now, I didn't call the police, but it
Mm-hmm.
turned out that her mother called the police.
Because I had moved to Bermuda with
Because we
him.
had moved to Bermuda. So her
Mhm.
mom was like, he's gonna do something to my baby. So the police comes upstairs, and we literally just got into a fight. Broken glass, broken lamp, everything. And the police see this.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're talking, they're like, are you okay, ma'am? And she's like, yeah, I'm fine. Everything's okay. And it was just the weirdest thing because
No, because I'm darker than Pedro, but I'm red. My
Yeah.
eyes are red. I'm crying. Then little Pedro, my son, was a baby at the time,
Mhm.
and they called me by my maiden name. That's why I knew it was my mother.
Yeah.
And because
Mm.
they were like Tara Sharp, I was
Yeah.
like,
So her mom's in
I haven't
Alabama,
been called by
called the
maiden name
police
for a
in
while.
Bermuda. She didn't know what was going on.
Right. Well,
Tyler never
my
called
mother
her.
got somebody that anyway, my mama did like an investigation thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate my mother for that because I know my mama loved me. However, I knew that was what it was, and they was like, "Do you want to go back home?" I was like, "No, I'm gonna stay here and everything," because they was gonna, if I wanted to, send me back to America if I wanted to go back,
So,
and I was like, no.
so I'm curious because I would, as a counselor, I'm going into therapy now
Mm-hmm.
because I've done some training in marriage and family therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And I would almost have to say you were recklessly confidential. How do you navigate that? And looking back now, what do you say to someone? How do they, because that's very nuanced. This is going on for an extended time. I guess
It was off and on. So
Went
it
through the
wasn't. It
whole
wasn't 8 years of abuse. It
No,
was like she said, it'd be like 3 months of good, 3, 4 months of good,
right.
and then thing. And it was weird though, because in all honesty, it was weird. Um, we were getting arguments after being intimate with each other.
Mm-hmm.
It was like because we would get into a discussion, we would get into a disagreement. We would be intimate with each other, thinking that maybe it would solve the problem. But then afterwards, we get into a bigger argument afterwards,
Mm-hmm.
and we was going through that circle
I
for a
think for
while.
me, even though Pedro had a lot of anger stuff going on, I always loved Pedro because I always feel like he had a good heart. And I said, he a good person and it's in there. It's in him. It's somewhere. And I'm not going to give up on that person. And I
Mm-hmm.
think for me, I was like, God, I don't want my marriage to end because right now I'm not happy with what's going on. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
happy with how my husband is treating me. And regardless of anything else, I just wanted him to love me and not hurt me. That's it. That's all I wanted. And I had said, I'm gonna hold on to this. I'm gonna hold on to the hope that my husband gonna change. I'm gonna hold on to that. I know I see a good person. I see a good husband in there somewhere. He's there,
Mm-hmm.
and I know he's gonna show it to me. And I held on to that all these years, and even now still. And I have seen a change in my husband dramatically. And I told him before I decided. I never thought about divorce. I never thought about divorcing Pedro and leaving. When I went home, I said, "Mom, I need to come home for a little while. Um, I just need to come home for a little while." She said, "Okay," but I never told her what it was or what I was going through. She'd be like, she used to always come to me because after I've been there for about a while,
Mm-hmm.
when you going back to your husband? I said, "I'm gonna go back. I'm going back." And she was like, "Okay," but I never told her why,
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't want the questions. I didn't want to be like, "Oh, this is just not going to work. You might as well just leave him," because this leaving is easy. But
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to stick it out because I said, I know he's going to change. I know he is. I know it's not going to be like this always.
So
I want to
what
ask a
kind of
question real
stuff?
quick.
Yeah,
I'm
go.
sorry, what you was asking because the danger of what we did was to what you told me the other day that I was like you
Oh,
said,
right.
yeah.
All right. But yeah, I'm going to
So
get to that.
so along with her praying over me at night, a lot of times, we had to just. It was weird before you even contacted us. We had a conversation, and she said, "You're lucky to be alive." And I said, "What you mean?" She said, "You lucky to be alive." I said, "What you mean? I'm lucky to be alive?" She said, "I was gonna kill you." And I said, "What? What you mean you was gonna kill
I
me?"
had my
She said, "I
we
literally
had
was
our
sitting
second
there."
child together, my oldest daughter,
Mm-hmm.
and she was in her car seat. And that was the one day I was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm not gonna let him do this to me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I literally was thinking premeditated about what I was gonna do. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I was like, I'm gonna get this knife and he gonna be sleeping. And I promise I said that. I said that to Peter just the other day. I was
And I know
like,
I'm laughing. She said, "Why you laughing?"
I really
I
thought
laugh because
about
I'm
it
like,
because
"Wow,
I
you
was,
was really thinking
but
that."
then the only thing that stopped me was like, you know what? I'm not fit to go to jail for anyone. You know what I'm saying? I'm not fit to lose my children because of this. I'm gonna just go. Just
Mm.
leave. And then I had left. And that time when I left, that was the longest I had been gone.
So,
Yeah, it was. Not
so
enough. Yeah.
so you are bringing out something now that's real because suffering, we can only take so much of any kind of suffering.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And for you to be thinking that, it indicates to me that at that point you were screaming out. You are nearing your limit, and people sometimes get pushed, not because they intend to do harm, but
Hmm.
they just feel cornered. They say if a rat is cornered, that rat could jump on you. A rat
Yeah,
normally runs from you.
right.
So in that time, it sounds like you were at your limit. But I'm curious, what kind of support you had, or did you guys seek any intervention throughout that
I
whole period?
I did go speak to someone.
Hmm.
When we was living in Bermuda, I think I spoke. I can't remember the pastor name at the moment. But anyway, I went spoke to a pastor, and I told him about our situation, and he talked to us the next day. Like he called us in. We went to his office. We told him about everything that was going on, and he then referred us to someone that can help us
No, wait.
with that.
That's when you came and said to me, you think I called the pastor and said, we need to come and talk to you. Not that I'm trying to take credit, but I'm just saying that's what happened. I, because I don't think you had a friend that you talked to that you was able to confide in that helped you. That's what your help came from. I was being stubborn and asking for help, and that's when you came to me and said, "Look, if you don't, we're not gonna be together no more." So then I contacted the pastor, and then we went to the
Either
pastor's
way, it
house.
happened.
No, we went to the pastor's house,
Yeah.
and then got referred to the family counselor,
Mhm.
and then we started to do counseling
Mhm.
through that, and then we had the one pastor that came to visit, and that's when you decided to become a Adventist, because I didn't even know that he said, okay, you could be Baptist, you could be Adventist, pick a denomination. I don't care if it's Baptist, I don't care if it's Adventist, but pick a denomination. You both need to be on the same page. And she said, I want to be Adventist, and I looked at her like, are you serious? She was like, yeah, because the whole 5 years of the whole time, I never once said to my wife, be Adventist. I didn't know she wanted to be that.
Right.
I didn't even know she wanted to be Adventist. So then we got baptized. And even after we got baptized, the abuse still
It was still
happened. It
happening.
was still happening after we got baptized, because this was 5 years into the marriage. So that's that's where that was the first time.
But I
But then
did
when
finally
we
we
finally
did
went
finally
to-
talk to someone,
right.
and that really helped. But then I had left then, and I had told him I'm not coming back until you change. I just wasn't going to go through it anymore. Because I said we have children now. I'm not going to let my children see this type of behavior.
It was
and especially
affecting the children.
right.
They was very jumpy.
And I said I did not, and they was young. They was really, really young at the time. And I said, as they grow, I don't want my children, my son or my daughter, to think that they have to accept this type of behavior in a marriage. You know what I'm saying? And have to stay in a situation that's not healthy for them. And I said, until you do that, I can't come back. And but my mother asked me when I was there for them that time I was there for the longest. She said, "Are you going to go back?" I said, "Well, I won't." And I said to myself, and I was praying, asking God what I should do. And I said, "Well, I don't know if it's going to work out if I don't go try." So should I go back to Bermuda or what? And when he gave me the answer, I went. I was nervous because I was like, I know he changed.
So you're saying in the midst of dealing with domestic or intimate partner violence,
hmm
you prayed to God about it. You didn't just act on what's
Oh, I
clearly in
didn't.
front of you.
No, I did not go on my own account. I was praying the whole time through the situation. I'm praying, talking to God the whole time. Because for a long time, I didn't speak to anyone about our situation. I kept it to myself. You know what I'm saying? I was like, I can't say anything. I ain't have a trusted friend at that moment to speak to me. You know what I'm saying? So I kept it to myself. I really spoke to God about my situation all the time. And I'm like, how I should move in this situation. So as I got to that point of actually just leaving and going and getting to my last time of actually staying for the longest and making a decision, am I going to make this work with Pedro? Am I going back? And I prayed about it. I said, Lord, you're going to have to direct me on this. I don't want to walk on my own account, because this may not be what I think it is, and when he gave me that, he gave me this, the sense to do it, I said, Pedro, I'll come back this time. I was nervous the whole time.
And the ironic is that when I changed, it still took a while to see that I changed.
But wait a minute, as I was,
which is fine.
when I finally went back, each day for me was, okay, what's the day gonna hold? If we have an argument, what's gonna happen with this argument? I thought those thoughts a lot. And as time went on, I was like, okay, he ain't being like he was before. We're gonna still have arguments, but it wasn't getting as aggressive as it was getting from before. So I was happy to see that, but it took time. It didn't happen overnight. It took a long time.
It took some years.
It took a long time to me feel comfortable.
And even during that time, then temptation came along.
We
thought everything was good between us.
It took me a long time to trust Pedro again, to know that he's gonna appreciate me enough to not put his hands on me, period. And that's all I wanted. Like, you have to show me. My love language is touching and feeling and stuff like that. Pedro wasn't. He wasn't an intimate person. He wasn't
a touchy-feely person.
A touchy-feely person. No. And I was. So I showed my emotion. I show how I feel through that. you know, stop. I show how I feel to that, my thing was I didn't want the intimacy just to be sex. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted him to be how he treated me, how he talked to me, how he, you
But
know,
but
stuff
but
like that.
I want to pause there, Tara, because and Pedro, because it's something when we talk about intimacy warriors,
Hmm.
it's something we keep highlighting, where we are saying women need safety. Men,
Hmm.
most times, most men want more sex,
Right.
but the woman needs safety to give
Yes.
sex freely and to be
Right.
actively engaged.
That's it.
And it's for me, the thing about intimate partner violence and the difficulty it presents, it's harming someone and then still wanting them to give of themselves, which
Right.
when you understand the dynamic, it's a difficult place to be in.
Hmm.
It's a difficult place, and we know people have navigated it, you have navigated it. But when you stop to think about it and what it does to a woman psychologically,
Hmm.
it's crazy because it's like somebody's putting a demand on your system, but at the same time, their action is shutting down that system.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the emotions and stuff. So it's in preparing for this, I was looking at just some research on the whole matter of intimate partner violence from a biblical perspective. And there are those who feel that the Bible endorses intimate partner violence and the abuse of women. And when I look at it, I said, hmm, that's one way to look at it. But I think, Pedro, that violence towards the other from biblically started in the Garden of Eden, and the first murder was towards Abel.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at our mistreatment of the other, it never really started with the woman. It wasn't first directed at a woman, it's first directed at a man.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so these days I say to person, don't let us not get into the gender specifics of it, even though we know that women suffer more. But
Right.
at the heart of it, it's a relationship with God issue.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's a relationship with God issue. So I think I want to jump a little bit because while Tara was going through what was happening in her head, Pedro, something was happening on your end that by the time she's gonna come back now, it's going to make a shift. What
Hmm.
was helpful for you that kind of changed the dynamic a little bit?
Uh,
I
I
think you
had
had
to,
mentioned talking to a pastor.
yeah, talking to the, well, it was more when I saw how serious she was when she said, if you don't change, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to leave. Because I think like I said earlier, I was doing it because I was trying to want her to leave, but I
Yeah.
really didn't want her to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And when I realized, oh my goodness, I pushed it to the brink of wanting to leave, then I was like, oh, now I can't have her not leave. I love her.
Mm-hmm.
I love my son. I want to be with her. You know, she came to Bermuda from Alabama. She didn't have to do this, and I'm not gonna do this to her. She don't deserve this. So then it's like all of a sudden it just clicked in my head, and I just realized that I need to get help. And then I realized that I just had a lot of anger build up inside of me that I was subconsciously or just intentionally putting it out on her, and it was not fair to her. So I realized then that, um, like you said, biblically, I was like, I'm not doing right by my wife.
Mm-hmm.
It don't it I can't, because I was blaming her. Oh, if you didn't do this, or you didn't do that, and it's not what she does. It's still my response to respond in a
Ah,
better way.
Mm.
the,
So
the,
it don't matter if she flips me off. I
mm-hmm.
still have to respond in a Christian and godlike way.
That's
So it
it.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what she does, what she say, because that was my excuse. Well, if you didn't say whatever, or if
Mm-hmm.
you didn't do this, or if you didn't roll your eyes, or if you didn't do that,
Yeah.
then I wouldn't have had to do that to you.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So then I had to talk to God and get that understanding. Look, man, like God was like, look, you got it. You can't keep blaming. You got look at
Yep.
yourself. So
Yep.
I had to look deep into myself and realize that I was the problem. It was not my wife.
Mm.
It was all me.
And God never hardened my heart, and I'm
And
glad that He didn't.
so then that's when I realized that it was all me. So with it being all me, I need to change me.
And to why did He said that the day Pedro came to me and took responsibility for his action, and he told me, he apologized to me. I felt the sincerity. All I wanted him to do was take responsibility. That's it,
Mm.
and stop blaming me for everything.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
all I wanted to do is help him through his anger, help him
mm,
the things that was bothering him, because I know I can't fix him. Only
mhm,
God can do that. And
mhm.
I just said, Lord, I just need you to change his heart because I can't do it. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I can't change his heart. I can't change what he's going through. And Pedro had a lot of his past affected him in our marriage, you
Mhm,
know. And I'm like, God, you need to fix this because I can't, but I'm gonna stay here until you do. You know what I'm saying? Because I know it's gonna at some point it's gonna change. Because I believe nothing lasts always, you know.
mhm,
And I think
mhm,
God, you know, trouble don't last always. I know God's gonna make it change, you know,
mhm.
and that's why I had to believe in it. I had to hold on to something, you know,
But
and it wasn't because of my children.
mhm, mhm.
I never made my decision based on my kids
Yeah.
that we had together. I made my decision on I love my husband.
Mhm,
I know he can do, I know he can be a better husband for me.
mhm, mhm.
And I want to be a good wife for him. But how do I do that?
But that's huge, Tara. That's huge what you're saying, and I don't want to bypass what Pedro just said, that
Right.
he got to the place where he realized he had to take responsibility.
That's
He
it.
had to own his stuff. And
That's
I
it.
think it's worth emphasizing because there are still individuals out there. There are men who feel I do this because of the woman. And there
That's
are
it.
women who are actually buying into that to say, oh, it's because I didn't do that, or because where in a Christian context, there can be no room for that kind of mindset because
That's it.
when the Bible tells you to love your enemy, even if you feel your wife is your enemy, that's you're obligated to give love.
Mm-hmm.
You're obligated to be safe. It's
Mm-hmm.
like the police sees a criminal. At no point the police is entitled to just be an executioner, except
Right.
when their life is under total risk. And marriage
Mm-hmm.
can, when abuse is happening in the marriage space, it's not compared to that. We have
Right.
one person who is always on the other person. So I really appreciate you owning that, and we want to say it loudly. If anything like this is happening to anyone, it's important that we as men, if we are the aggressors, that we
That's right.
realize we own that stuff
Mm-hmm.
and we seek to get help. Because interestingly, Pedro, even recent our last episode, one of our callers shared how he came to marriage and he realized there was some grieving he should have done that he did not do. And it's not
Mm.
until he went on to do that grieving did that the interaction in his marriage change.
Right.
And we are overlooking a lot of the work we need to do internally as men so we can be the safe person we need to be for our wives
That's it.
Mhm.
and
That's it.
create that space, that loving space. And I also want to quickly highlight, Tara, you said your heart was not hardened. And
No.
God was on your side because a lot of people become hardened. They become callous. But when you look at it, what do you think that was attributed to? I'm curious that you are facing this, things are up and down, and I want the audience to understand, Pedro, the dynamic is so unusual that you're saying even when your wife is leaving, you are covering her in terms of providing for her. So you told me one time she's leaving, you are setting up the house, ensuring that she's being taken care of.
He
I
So,
set up
always
I
makes
set up the
sure.
house, the kids, they was going to Oakwood. I made sure we paid for them. I paid for them to go to Oakwood.
Anytime I left, Pedro always took he always took care of me. I didn't have to worry about that.
I even bought the flights.
Yeah. Each time I went.
Which is bought the flights. I literally went online and bought the flights and made sure that she had the closest or the cheapest. I would get cheap flights, but like connections, only 1 or 2 hours. We was just talking about this.
Yeah.
Like, 1 or 2 hour connection flights. I made sure she got back there safely. When she came back, I made sure she got back. I was like the travel agent. I would set her up like completely.
It's huge for me, and I tell you why it's necessary. Sometimes people are in strained relationship or broken situations, and when you look at it, Pedro, there is nothing to redeem. There is nothing redeemable. What I hear when I spoke with you, and as I'm listening to the interaction now, and I think it's important that our audience hear that, is when you're dealing with the difficulty, is there signs of hope? Is there anything there that you can look on and say, it's not totally lost? And I think a lot of people are not able to make that distinction and be hopeful even, or to allow that to inform them how they act. And that's why I was asking the question I asked Tara, what was happening for you?
Like for me, we always, even though I was away, we talked on the phone a lot all the time. And we got along well on the phone. We talk. If I needed something.
To this day, that's still the case.
And we was laughing on the phone. We was having good conversations on the phone. It's just like, and for me, I couldn't understand how we got along on the phone, but when we in person, it's a totally different beast.
So we had to learn to combine.
I couldn't handle sometimes when we was together talking in person because it just felt like we never really got along. But
you didn't like my facial expressions.
Yeah, I didn't. and then for me,
why are you making that face?
And I think that's what kept me going and us going in our marriage is that we were still talking to each other even though I was away. I didn't totally shut down and he didn't either. I just needed time for myself. I just needed to get away. I already was trying to adjust to a new environment, being in a new country on the island. And so coming back home gave me some type of comfort that I needed in normalcy for me. You know what I'm saying?
I think I knew that. And that's why I did what I did.
Yeah.
I knew that she was struggling, not having family there, not having anybody, because she was really close to her family.
Really close.
So now it's just me. I'm acting a fool. I'm causing her grief and stress. So I said, you know what? The least I could do is like put on a little mini vacation. And to be fair, we have conversations and she say, look, Peter, I'm not leaving you. I just need time. I think that was part of it too. It wasn't like she was like, I'm leaving you. I'm never coming back. She never once said that. It was always like, look, I just need time. I just need to go home. So okay, go home, do what you got to do. The last time was the only time. That's when she went to Oakwood.
Yeah.
When she went to Huntsville, where she was like, I'm leaving. She was like, I'm leaving, I'm going to America, I'm gonna get a job and I can send you money. And I'm like, it's not gonna work if you got the kids. She's like, I'm gonna make it work. I said, okay. So it was kind of like the prodigal son. I said, okay, go ahead and see. Because at the last time we was actually in a good place.
Yeah.
It was actually in a very good place. But then we just,
now wait a minute. Now before I left and went to Alabama for that time, not when I was with my mother, but this particular time I had made this decision on my own that I wanted to go back because I felt like being in Bermuda was a struggle for me.
And you didn't talk with God either.
I didn't. I just
that was on your own. That was your own decision. Let's clarify that one because that was.
But through it all, Pedro still supported me. He never not did. So I lost my train of thought. But I can't remember what I was going.
You was talking about when you
the
left.
last time.
Time.
Before I left, I got involved talking to a gentleman, and we was just friends for me and the guy was a friend, and he was just talking to me, I understand what you're going through. He was having issues in his marriage as well, and we was talking about that. And I think for me, I got too comfortable talking to the guy, and this is the first time I had ever thought about being with someone else ever, even though we was going through our whole situation. I had never thought about being with another man, not even intimately.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think talking to him and him listening to me, I felt like, oh wow, he understands. He understands and he listens to me. And then when the gentleman told me he had feelings for me, I was like, well, it took my head up to another space. And God was like, Tyra, you better scale back. I just felt like I heard God speaking to me, like, Tyra, no, you don't want to go down this road. You don't want to go this direction. So I had been talking to the gentleman for a while before I even told Pedro, but then God said, you're gonna have to tell your husband. And I was like, I don't want to. I said, he don't know, so what's the point? I could just go back to just doing whatever I was doing. And he was like, no, you're going to have to confess. So I did. I said, okay, confess my sins, Lord. So I went to Pastor Pedro when he got home from work. I said, Pedro, I got something to tell you. I've been talking to this gentleman and, I don't love him. I don't. I didn't. And I said, but I like our conversation. And, but I said, I know I couldn't do it. And I told the guy, I said, look, I can't talk to you no more because it's going somewhere I don't think it should go. And I said, this is not what God wants me to do. And I'm sure you need to work out your situation as well. And so I cut it off.
Amen.
But see, what you're leaving out this is when, God works in mysterious ways.
This is when
when she realized that I've changed.
Yes, because when I told Pedro, he was sitting on the counter and I was standing in the kitchen, and I told him, and I was looking for him to get mad, angry, and he just did it. I was like, I was calm. I was so calm. In my mind, I was like, I didn't know what to think. I was so confused. She was so confused of why I was so calm. I was like, so you're not gonna like get mad or like who it is,
break something, scream,
or
shout,
something. I'm looking for that.
And I told her the funny thing was that I wasn't even mad at her.
And I asked him why you wasn't mad.
I was more mad at myself because I said I drove you to that.
So owning again.
I owned it. Yeah, it was. I did not blame her. I said I don't blame you. The way I've treated you, the way I've done things to you, that's what should happen. In my mind, it didn't surprise me. It didn't surprise me when she came to me and said that, because I'm like, if the way I've treated you. Oh yeah, I'm like pushing you to another man's arms.
You left her exposed.
Yeah, I left you exposed. I didn't do my job as a husband. So why would I get mad? If I'm gonna get mad, I should be mad at myself. I should be mad at you, because you didn't do nothing wrong. Again, this was my fault.
I think the intimacy part for me was the conversation with the guy.
Yeah, that's fine. But I'm still saying I was not giving you the conversation that you needed.
Right.
So either way, I took responsibility and said it was all me. It was on. That's why I've never got mad to this day. I got a little. I get a little jealous, a little irritated.
Of course.
I'm still a man. I'm not a. I'm a man. Not to that extent. I'm just like and I laugh about it, and I'm like, you know what? It is what it is. I pushed you. I made you do that because you was looking for something. I was not providing it as your husband. So, as a woman, I heard something the other day. If you have a wife and she is vocal, it's a good thing that she's vocal. When you should be scared is when your wife is quiet. When she's very, very quiet, that's when you should be worried, because that means she's thinking about things that may not be the best thing to be thinking about. If she's not expressing things to you anymore, if she's coming to you and she's saying, hey, I don't like this. Hey, you're doing this. Hey, you're not doing that. Okay, it may be annoying, but she's still vocalizing it to you. When she's not saying anything to you anymore,
that's dangerous.
Something's not right. That's the end of the marriage. Something's going on in the marriage.
Something is dying. Something is dying.
Strategizing. She's thinking. She's like, okay, I need to make this move. So how can I make this move? And now she's only thinking about that. Okay, I need to make sure the children, this, that. Okay, this money is here, this money there. I need, And so at that time, she was a little quiet. I'll come home and she'd be like, "Yeah, my day was good," and that was it. She wasn't really like it, because like as I walked through the door, it turns out she was hanging up the phone. So she had talked all out before I got home.
I was.
And she was
talk was done.
So I'm thinking everything's good. Or we're in a good place. We're gonna be
Because
good
we
together. Blah
wasn't
blah
talking
blah.
like that. The only conversation me and Pedro was having is whatever was going on at the house or the kids. That was it.
And I'm being a man. I wasn't paying attention. So that's why I get mad.
But
I helped cause the situation.
but I appreciate you owning this again, and I'm using this piece to also highlight third party involvement.
Mhm.
This is what we would call, we thankfully didn't go beyond where just a conversation, but this is
That's
where
right.
we third party involvement, illicit third party involvement is always going to be disastrous for the relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to highlight it in that context because you said, Pedro, the change started coming for you when you sought help.
Yeah.
I do premarital counseling, and one of the things I do know is I say to the couple at the outset, identify someone, at least three persons, that if you come in and there's a crisis and your spouse is not responding, this person you can call them. You feel they are confidential, you trust them, you respect them, both of you respect them. Seek intervention early. No,
Mhm.
unfortunately, or well, we won't even label it as unfortunately, as you say, things work as they did. But in your case, the intervention came later in the
Later.
life of the conflict.
Right.
There are lots of things we could avert sometimes if we get helpful intervention early, because
Yeah.
Yeah.
wrong intervention is equally dangerous.
Yes.
And this is where I think the Spirit was leading you, Tara, where you held that from your parents. Um, I said, don't practice this at home.
Right.
I do it with
I want to be
caution.
for everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, but we have to also know the people around us and know if their intervention is going to be helpful. So,
See, I knew if I would have opened up my mouth, I would still be reliving it to this day. Because one thing about it, regardless of how things was, if I forgive my husband, we can work through our differences. But my family will never forgive him.
yep,
They will hate him forever.
yep.
They'll never be
Now,
where I am.
that
What
dynamic does work good too if you have a family that is not judgmental in a sense.
Right, but I
Because we
knew,
told
but
my
I knew,
family.
but you got to know your audience, and I knew how my family was,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and I knew the minute they saw anything that was not of the normal for them, it would have been like, oh, you just stay with somebody, da, da, da. It just would have never been. I would always be hearing it all the time, even to this day, and that's why I had to keep it to myself. I
Mhm.
knew I had to.
Funny thing, but we told my parents. I don't know how
I
we
told
ended up.
your
You
father.
told my father, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
How
told
I
him.
didn't.
early? How
I
early?
didn't tell them. You told them.
How long we have been living in New York? When
A couple of years.
Yeah, I had spoke to his father when we had an argument one time,
Hmm.
and I went and his father
I
had
never
said,
told my
"Look,
parents, to be honest. You did.
I told your
Yeah, you told my
father,"
father.
and
He told my mother.
his father was so she was like, "Look, if you got to leave, then go."
Yeah, my father, even though he's a pastor, he said, if it's not safe, don't stay.
Well,
He
that's
told us.
that. I mean, we could plaster that on our board and say that it's
Mhm.
one of the first thing of counseling where they say for safety's sake. And I mean, God has been good to you guys. He helped you to navigate it. But the reason for this, we don't want, not all of us know our breaking point.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
God was good to you, Tara, but you eventually got to the place where the thought came, I'm going to harm him.
Mhm. Mhm.
And this is where intervention is absolutely necessary. Or some of what you did, where you took away yourself periods of the time, taking away yourself out of the safe, the danger zone is helpful, which in your case was also twofold
Right.
because is when you came out of the danger space, it's now helped to show another side of Pedro that he wanted the marriage, he was caring.
Right.
He Because unfortunately, sometimes people are afraid to leave the danger zone because by the time they leave, the danger zone is filled with a third party. But
Yeah.
in your case, Pedro, which is unusual, you were covering your family when they were away.
Mhm.
Hmm.
So it's a very delicate thing to navigate. I mean, your thing is worth celebrating on several levels, but there are lessons to take and to say, how best we do this? What are the best practices? What can we learn? Because we share the stories so that those who are coming behind can learn from them, or somebody who is in the situation can say, all right, maybe I could try this or do this as a best practice. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. We are almost out of time, but I want you to talk a little bit because your thing has elevated on a different level. You're in a different space. The intimacy, the quality of the intimacy is high up. Your interaction overall is different. Your home is different. The
Yeah.
atmosphere has changed. Tell me a little bit just where you are now, and you are doing a ministry. I didn't want to say it at the beginning, but out of your journey, you
Yeah.
know, I've healed my marriage. Talk a
Yeah.
little bit about where you are and just some of the key pieces that kind of help to transition into this
I would
season.
just to be where we are today is like it's a
Night
miracle.
and day.
It's a miracle. It's night and day, and I thank God for it every day. I don't regret the things that has happened because it has shown me who I am as
Mm-hmm.
a as a mother, as a wife, and showing that you can stick it in through the hard times. Running, it's running away is like always running away for me is like I gotta start over again. I just didn't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to, and I'm just glad we're here today. And we talked
Amen.
before when pandemic happened, we started our podcast, and we told our children about our situation.
Mm-hmm.
We let them know what was going on before we started the podcast because we didn't want to put nothing out publicly without speaking to them. So
Mm-hmm.
we spoke to our children about what we went through and all the different changes. And so the only thing that my children told us was, "So are you guys still that way now?" And we said no, and they was
Mm-hmm.
like, "Okay." And they gave us a hug. They said, "We love you," and they haven't brought it up again since that last conversation. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what kind of response I was going to get from them, but they were so lovable, and we was like, "Well, mommy and daddy, we love you," you know, and whatever it was, because they was young, they don't
Mm-hmm.
remember a
Mm-hmm.
lot of it, um, but they just moved on, and we have grown, we have talked about our situation in public, which helped us in our marriage. And I
Mm-hmm.
think when we talked about it, my mother was the first time she heard me talk about what we went through. She was called me, and his mom called, and my family called, was like, we didn't even know it was like this. And, and it really helped me and Pedro grow even closer together because I didn't want to be afraid of talking about what we went through.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to hide behind it. Because at one point I didn't want people to see my husband as a monster because I didn't see him that
So you're
way.
talking about the podcast we
The
did about
podcast,
abuse.
but still
Because we had did
just
many
coming out with the
podcasts.
different things
We had did plenty of podcasts
yeah, but
before
our
then.
first podcast is when we finally made the decision to talk about it. um it really just it helped me, it helped him,
Mm-hmm.
and our family saw, they was like, wow, it blew a lot of people away that we had discussed it in a public way. And at first I was like, should I be embarrassed about it? Should I,
I wasn't.
I said, for me, I was like, I don't want nobody to, see my husband in this way. And God totally turned it around. It was so many people we helped
Mm-hmm.
when we shared our story,
Mhm.
and we just been doing it from then.
And I think I remember somebody commented to me. They said that they could see me change. Like
Mm-hmm.
they knew me how I was before,
Mm-hmm.
and they could see the honest change in me now. And
Mm-hmm.
what you said about doing the podcast of that with the abuse, I kept everything was me. I
Mm-hmm.
never once was like Tar.
Mm-hmm.
Everything
Mm-hmm.
was me. It was on me. It was me. It was me. It was me. Because I always felt that that's how I healed. The funny doing the podcast is why we call it Heal My Marriage now is because I find is a safe space for us.
Mm-hmm.
And when we started doing the podcast, what we was doing was our gripes that we had, our disagreements, we will bring it up in the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But because we was on the podcast, we could not respond.
Retaliate.
Right.
Yeah,
So
like
we
we learned
had
it the
to
private
we
way.
we actually had to do active listening. We actually had to listen.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
So when we're talking, we're actually listening to each other.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then after the podcast, we'll sit and be like, "So you really did feel that way?" Yeah. Because it was a point of I just say to people, "I don't like my wife,"
Mm-hmm.
and she would tell me, but I wasn't listening. And one day in the podcast, she was like, one thing I don't like
We
you
did a
do?
podcast on it,
Yeah,
actually.
you always I don't like you. You say I don't like you. It just makes me feel the way when you do that to people. I
Mm-hmm.
just feel this or that. And I actually started to listen to her.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, I'm gonna stop. And I've never said it since. I
Mhm.
mean, I may say it every now and then in joking, but before I was saying it all the time to like I could see her feeling uneasy.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing I tell people like with us doing this podcast, we're not just trying to help other people, we're helping ourselves.
Mhm.
Getting
Mm.
ourselves closer to God, and we're getting ourselves closer to each other because it gives us a platform to just talk freely about how we really feel and get a better understanding of our marriage. So we are actually healing our marriage each and every time we do the podcast.
Mhm.
People don't realize it. They think that we maybe just be talking to them. We're actually talking to ourselves
Mm-hmm.
each and every day,
Yeah.
when we do it,
Mhm.
and and it allows us to have better conversations outside of the podcast. So
Mhm.
now sometimes we sit and have a conversation. We're like, man, we should really be recording this because this is podcast material. Like,
Right.
we're having deep conversations. And we're like, man, because, you just start talking,
Mhm. Mhm.
and you don't, and then it just turns into that conversation. So,
And how
that's
we
why.
interact with each other now is different.
Mm-hmm.
Um, do we have an argument or something? We be more quicker, if that's not even a word, but
We're quicker too.
we more to the
Not
point.
more, no more in front. It's quicker
Right.
too.
The point is, we trying to solve the situation quickly. You know what I'm saying? We're not staying in that. We have a problem. We trying to
Make a joke.
talk about it, get it out the way, and we
Mhm.
moving on. We're not holding on to stuff. You know what I'm saying? And I think we have matured in that way.
I tell people this all the time. Our dynamic is weird. Not only did we get married so quickly, and like our dynamic is we still use the phone as a way of communication.
We do.
So we get into a disagreement that we do not like, and we would not
'Cause most times
we
he's
won't
on the
talk to each other. We'll still
road.
be cordial, be like, hey
Right.
baby, and she may be her little feelings. I'll be in my feelings, and then I get on the road and we start talking on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
We can hash it out easier on the phone sometimes, and then when I get home, we finish the conversation.
Mhm.
Mm.
Like so, we hash it out because we're not in each other's face.
And I
Get
think
you.
now
And so our dynamic with the phone is a weird dynamic, but we use the phone a lot to fix a lot of our issues sometimes because it just seems to work that way.
And I
Mhm.
think for me, I'm not holding back on my feelings like I used to. I
Mhm.
used to hold back and didn't tell Pedro how I felt because I felt like he'll get angry or something.
Mhm.
But now,
Lord, yeah, that's true.
I just tell Pedro how I feel. I don't
Sometimes
care.
I'm like, really? That's crazy, woman.
Yeah, I just, I learned that I have to express myself in our marriage, and I felt like
You
at
can
one
hold back
point,
a little bit,
I felt like at one point I didn't have a voice,
Mhm.
and
You have a voice.
I said, in the sense of expressing myself, telling you how I feel without you feeling like, without you coming at me like that,
Mhm.
Mhm.
you know.
Mhm.
Oh, now you got a voice for sure because you
But now
definitely
I
tell me.
express myself, and I feel more comfortable talking to Pedro now
Yeah.
about stuff and we talking to each other, we laughing, and I just like how we getting along more better than we ever have done in a long time.
Mm. But
So
that's
you
what's supposed to happen. Part of what I talk about, I believe strongly in, is the free giving of self. Marriage should be that space where we give abundantly to the other person. We are generous in everything, in our kindness, in our care, in our consideration, in patience, and all those good stuff. So as I listen to you guys, I think it's just so powerful because I think I've listened to a miracle. Not many people stay long enough or believe long enough or hold the order on their end
Right.
long enough, or I call it also holding space for the other person
That's it.
long enough till that breakthrough come. And I
Yeah.
think in spite of the difficulty you've gone through, space was held for the other and the breakthrough has come.
Yeah.
And it's almost like it's surprising, Pedro, when we see that change in ourselves. It's like it's so wonderful. We are surprised at it.
Right.
But this is where I now feel that your story to me, it fulfills now all the four pieces of the dynamic we are using.
Yeah, because
Your
when you was talking about changing dynamic and just I see the difference in myself because like I was saying to Todd the other day, I think we had it wasn't like a bad fight. It was a heated debate.
mm-hmm,
And we was talking. We was going back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife has a habit of elevating because she's just loud. She's naturally loud, so sometimes when she gets worked up, her voice
As a
naturally
singer.
elevates. So I have to remind myself of that sometimes because I think sometimes she's doing it on purpose. But then I have to remember, it's just her natural um thing to cadence to just go higher because that's
mm-hmm,
just her voice goes higher. So I realize now that when I'm talking, I'm actually thinking as I'm talking.
mm-hmm,
So like I'm actually like thinking to the point of like when I'm having a conversation with my wife, I actually have two thoughts in my head. I have
mm-hmm.
this is gonna make her mad, this is gonna make her happy. No, and I'm dead serious when I say this. And I tried like
You wait.
before I weigh the options of
Mm-hmm,
what will be the best answer. Sometimes I will still say it if it makes her mad.
I'm like that too sometimes.
But I weigh the options in my head of what am I gonna say? How should I
mm-hmm,
say it?
mm-hmm,
And I just be more as we're discussing as we're having an argument, I'm sitting there like thinking
mm-hmm.
and strategizing in my head. What should I do? What should I not do?
I just know for
And I
me when,
try to.
when I do that too in a way because I know if I
No,
say
you
something,
don't.
I say because most times I'm like that because I was like if I say something, I can't take it back. Words you can't take back once
Mm-hmm,
you say
mm-hmm,
them.
mm-hmm.
You
See,
know what I'm
and
saying?
no, but see, you're emotionally more, so you will say things most times that will hurt my feelings. But and the thing is that I don't even say it right then. So if she says something that hurts my feelings, I will not say it at that moment because she's not going to hear me.
So you're more measured and
I will
contemplative.
wait. I will wait till later on, maybe even a day or two later, sometimes a week later, and we're having a conversation. And I say, "Oh, by the way, when you said that, that really did hurt my feelings." Because if I say it when she does it, the
Yeah.
woman or the man is not going to really recognize it
Yeah.
But
because they're saying it to hurt. They know they're saying it to hurt your feelings, so they're not going to admit, "Oh, I'm saying it. Yeah, I really am saying it to hurt your feelings." No, you gotta catch them off guard. Like later on down the road, when you're having a conversation,
Mhm.
and trust me, God will always make it that it.
create an
We
opportunity.
had a thing where with our children, my wife is like, "You got to be more calm with the child," and I'm not going to be calm with my child. I'm the father. What I say goes. She's under my house. She eats my food. She's, under the comfort and care. My job is to take care of her. So
Mm-hmm.
she don't like me raising my voice at her sometimes. She needs to just get. And then like later on that day, she was like elevating her voice, and I said, so it's okay for you. You now it's okay when you do it, but when I do it, and she's like, okay, point well taken. She
Yeah.
realized, okay, I can't, I understand now what you mean by sometimes you have to put your foot down. Because
Mm-hmm.
Ty was putting down her foot with something, and I
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh, you're putting your foot down with that. But when I put my foot down, you're like, oh, be softer, be this. And I'm like, you wasn't soft. So you have to learn as a couple when to pick your battles,
Mm-hmm.
when to bring things up,
Mm-hmm.
when to communicate, when to
It's just
actually
learning your partner.
and when to shut
Yep.
up.
Yep. Yep.
Honestly, the best thing that you can do as a couple is learn when to shut up, when
Mhm.
But
learn to be quiet. Now,
but
shut up is a bad word. Be quiet.
mm-hmm. But one of the things I say, Pedro, and I think this is what I would describe is happening. I talk about going into your priestly anointing, and it's simply this posture where if I see sin, and I'm saying using the word sin broadly, but if you see any behavior that annoys you or you're concerned about,
Mhm.
how do you manage that? And I call it going in your priestly anointing. Whenever my
Yeah,
partner goes sinful, I go priestly.
yeah,
Mm. Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
safer because we tend to want to go into the prophetic. The prophetic is I see something that disturbs me, I speak. But you have to remember in the Old Testament, when the prophet speaks up, sometimes he has to run for his life because the word he brings is so harsh and strong, it's hard to be received. So I these days now talk about we want more to operate in our priestly posture. If my spouse goes sinful or annoying or negative, I go
Mhm.
godly.
That's
Um,
a that's a good way of putting it because you're right. Everything. One thing about our marriage is God is first in everything we do.
Mhm.
mhm,
We don't do anything, and like even when we're like, oh, it's not gonna work out. And the other one will say, look, if God is meant for it to happen, it's gonna happen.
mhm.
So we just put God
Amen.
first in everything and just trust God for everything that we do, even with our marriage, even when things are not going good or when things are going bad or things are going good, is God. We just
Mhm,
know that
mhm.
everything that's happening for us and with our family is with God.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's always our, like you said, that's a good way of putting it. Like being when
Appreciate.
she's being annoying,
Or you
I
being
become
annoying.
more, yeah, okay, whatever. I'm never annoying. I'm sweet. I'm sweet. I'm
You
But
sweet.
sweet. Oh my
guys,
gosh.
this is absolutely amazing. I mean, it's a pleasure just sitting and seeing both of you and just hearing about your journey. It's an absolute pleasure to see two individuals who have resolved to
Yeah.
press through regardless of what the challenges were, and you are now enjoying the fruit of that work, that
Yes.
effort. How can people find some of your stuff? How can people connect with you if they want to follow you and get more of the good stuff?
Well, you can follow us on our YouTube channel, Heal My Marriage
Mm-hmm.
Podcast. And we
Mm-hmm.
are on Spotify and Apple Podcasts up under that same name,
Mm-hmm.
Heal My Marriage Podcast. And you can hear us on those platforms. And we do have a Facebook group and page that you can go and follow as well. But we
Mm-hmm.
don't do live content anymore. We
Mm,
do pre-record a lot of our stuff and then we put it out.
Okay.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Unless when we record, we forgot to mute the mic and we talked for a whole hour and then we
That happened.
realized that that there was no sound.
I know. Oh my gosh.
Okay. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
guys, thank you. It's an absolute pleasure to just hear your testimony and what God has done. And I'm encouraged. I am encouraged for myself because there are several things I can take personally. And I know tonight the audience will be blessed just by what you have shared.
Hmm.
I feel, Pedro and Tara, that when we go to heaven, there is not going to be a situation you can think of that you will not have an overcomer who has
Oh
gone
yeah.
through
That's the truth.
and to testify that God kept us through this. We persevered through this. Um, yeah, so thank you, thank you, thank you. Mad
Thank you
respect to
for
both
having
of
us.
you.
Much
Thank
respect.
you.
Um,
Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
having us on. We
Yeah.
really do appreciate.
Hello. That was a lot. I trust that you were blessed. I trust that you had an opportunity to soak it in and to ask some hard questions. I saw a few questions fly by in the chat. Haven't been tracking them much, but I'm sure that our time science has been recording them. And I think it's time to
see, yeah,
open the microphone, well, open the floor to any
we'll see
questions,
how quickly we'll
comments,
do it because
feedback. Yeah,
some folks are way ahead.
yeah.
Leon?
Ahead in time. Yes, thank you so much. I listened. I hope you're not hearing an echo. I had more than one thing on. But I was traveling, as you know, Pastor Jason, and you might have mentioned it. So I was not um listening too clearly the very first part. But towards the end, I was hearing more of what was being shared by our guests. And I think that for some people, especially when it comes to this topic, it's very touchy. It's a very sensitive one. And
And it can be triggering.
and it can, yes, and it can be definitely. And I see a couple questions came to me privately.
Mhm.
And because this was pre-recorded, so we don't have the opportunity to ask them the question
Directly,
now.
right. But I
But
did
based on
share
the
their ministry link, so if you want to reach out
right,
personally, like absolutely.
right, and perhaps because
Mm-hmm.
but you would have interacted with them, then maybe you could share your thoughts on
Mm-hmm.
or in response to some of these questions. So one question is, how did the wife know that God told her to fight for the marriage? Did that come out
Yeah, she
how
did
did
talk
she
a
know
little bit
that?
about that. She said throughout the entire thing she had been praying. She had been
Mm-hmm.
consistently praying and speaking to God about it because she wasn't talking to anybody else. She didn't confide in her parents and she didn't have a close friendship that she felt she could confide in at that friend who she felt she could confide in at that time. So her conversations about the situation were primarily between herself and God. And she mentioned throughout different points at which she would have asked God for to give her some sense, some direction. Even the time when she met this guy who she was now having these conversations with, and God said to her, no, you need to stop going too far. You need to go talk to your husband about this. So she says that she pretty consistently spoke to God about her situation. So yes.
And then one of the things too, Leon, I did highlight it in the interview where I said she was kind of recklessly confidential.
Yeah.
Right, I was going to
But
come to that, yeah.
Yeah.
but she kind of contextualized why that happened because she felt if the moment from the beginning her parents had their reservation.
Right.
So she felt like if she would confide in them, that was just the end of it. They were gonna step in. And it's good and it's bad. It's good that she now has this experience. It's bad in a sense where parents make the relationship with their children as such that a child would rather suffer than to talk.
Yeah, because she does say she knows that if she had spoken to her parents about it up to this day, even though things have changed and whatever, she'd still be hearing about it.
Yeah.
And it's true. Most of us, like we can speak from the Caribbean. If your parents tell you don't do something and you do it and it goes wrong, you
never live it
never
down.
hear the end of it.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
There's no, okay, all right, don't do it. You do it, it goes wrong. You're like, you know what? It doesn't matter what you did. Come home. And you know what? I'm sorry this has happened. I really did see the signs and stuff. How can I help? And then you leave it and never talk to them or
No,
anybody else about
It's
it for
not.
that
It's
matter.
to not use the information.
That's not our culture. We weaponize information against people. And if we have a fuss or something happens, and that what list boy, where you take up when me tell us it, and it const, and then we tell our friends, we tell Miss Mom up the road, we tell Sister Sandra, we quarrel to everybody, and everybody, like, yeah,
Yeah,
no.
and Pastor Jason, correct me if I'm
Me did tell you, exactly. Me did tell you, say.
yeah, well, you did say throughout. I was hearing you issue a caution where
Yes.
you were kind of saying that, and I think this is one of the elephants in the room when it comes to this particular kind of conversation, where you were saying that what she did in terms of returning and staying, even though she left and she came back and still pursue the relationship, is not prescriptive. It's not a prescription
No,
for
this, Leon, honest, I could not make the interview, right? But for the first time tonight, I'm sitting and watching it,
yes.
and my heart was here in my throat, right? My background is many people know this in the legal profession, and you see some horrific things happen in domestic violence, now called intimate partner situations. You read the cases, you see the news. This is one in a billion, right? So let's underscore that.
Yep.
And Jason was very careful
About intervention.
how he spoke about intervention, safety, confiding in somebody, seeking refuge, like not exposing yourself to this on an ongoing basis. Many people have lost their lives in this kind of situation.
But Vinny, just to quickly introduce, she reached a tipping point. She thought about killing him.
Yes. Yes, and she said it. I was listening to the interview. I'm like, Jason, this is an interview for the ages because they're so honest and transparent. There are a couple of things I want to highlight. One,
Yeah,
she admits, she said, I took up a knife, you were sleeping, and this was my thought process. And a lot of women and men who have encountered abuse and children who are being abused by parents and however it goes.
and whoever.
So listen, they all get to a point where they're like, I'm gonna kill this person.
Mhm.
Sometimes it actually happens.
Well, YouTube might flag our video.
Well, I mean, we
When
may
we say
not be
when we
able
use the
to,
K word. But that
like,
is what it is.
you
That's
know,
what
seriously, like people get to the point where they're like, I can't do this anymore.
100%.
Right? So there's that. But there's also the other piece where he said, and this is so interesting because it's you get into the psychology of the abuser,
Mhm.
and he's like, I'm doing it deliberately to push you away. I want you to go away, and I'm doing this.
Mhm.
Right? And meanwhile, in her head, but what he's verbalizing is, well, if you didn't roll your eyes, if you weren't disrespectful, if you weren't this, if you weren't that. And so it starts to bring home some of those narratives that we hear in
Yeah.
situations where people are being abused, where they're like the abuser is saying, well, it's because you did this, or it's because, and he unpacks that. He says, don't ever accept that. Because when I came to a point of repentance, I had to own this and say, no, I am the it's on me.
Mm-hmm.
It's on me. And another interesting piece, sorry, I'm listening to it for the first time and all the thoughts are going off in my head too, is when she said she started to now turn to another person for affection. And you see how now adultery can arise in these situations because you're not getting the love you want here. You're seeking it somewhere else. And what was beautiful is that he said he owned that. He's like, I left you exposed. I'm pushing you away. I'm pushing you towards somebody else. I have to own that.
Yes. I love the fact that he did get to that point. And I think that's why, going back to what you said before, is why the person asked the question privately, how did she know? Because this has to be a situation.
Yeah.
It's so delicate. It is so dangerous that for her to have made that decision, we want to be sure that she actually did hear from God in that situation. And the follow-up question to it was, and what made him, that's the husband, decide to change? That's the real question. And the person says, what was the catalyst? How did they know it was time to change? Or how did he know it was time to change? What did he say?
He said it. He said that she was so insecure about him and the relationship that he was just tired of it. And he just kept pushing her away. He wanted her to go. He can't handle it. He's created that situation and now he can't handle it. So he wants her to go. When she finally decides, you know what? This is it. I'm done. And this is over unless you get help. And they both said at no point did she ever threaten divorce. She always said, I need some space, I need a break, I need whatever, but she never threatened divorce. So when she actually said to him, this is it, he knew it was serious. And then he had now to weigh, okay, well, do I really want to lose this person? And he realized, no, he didn't want to lose her. He didn't want to lose a third family because this would now be the third son that he was going to be estranged from. And he said she doesn't, it's a couple pieces, a lot of things. And then he said,
And timing.
He said, and she doesn't deserve this. He just had an epiphany, whatever it was. And
he also got help.
Yes, but that's it. So it's a lot of things that are happening all at the same time, right? So it's not just any one thing. He's talking to somebody, pastors, they're referring him to somebody else. He's talking to that person. She's now setting a clear boundary. Okay, this is it. I am done. We're not doing this anymore. And she said it. I don't want my kids growing up. They're young now, but I don't want them growing up seeing this kind of behavior and feeling that this is appropriate. I'm setting a boundary. And so there are a couple things happening at the same time, and he has to make a call. He has to make a decision. Am I going to continue heading in this direction, or am I going to really do the work and really change? But it's interesting. His father is a pastor. His mom is a Bible worker. Yes, her father is was deacons in the church. So they come from two very strong spiritual, religious backgrounds. Yeah. And they both had, well, he had a crisis of faith. And yeah, so
But I think that's part of what made it so relevant to our context.
yes.
Because here are church people, active church people who have a deep roots in church.
And he did say there were times they would have big knockout, drag out, bust up, and then she'd go to church and sing in the choir, and it was like nothing happened. And we all know there are people around us who are going through the pangs of hell, but they show up on a Sabbath and they're like, hey, good morning, happy Sabbath. And it's like, yeah. And they also mentioned too that at this level of maturity, they go to church and they see people in church whose marriages are dead. Like those marriages are done, but they're together for the sake of whatever it is that they're for. But you
Together,
can
but not
tell
together.
it's over. It's a wrap.
And I like, well, I can't say I like, but I'm just liking the fact that, you know, in abusive situations, especially physical abuse, it's dangerous for both persons.
Yes.
Because here it was that she was the victim of physical abuse, but she was pushed to the point of almost committing fatal physical harm, right? And becoming the very thing that she despised as well. And so it's a double-edged sword. It's very tricky situation, but of course, I guess you would say, Pastor Jason, from a counselor's perspective, that at the very first instant, and I see people saying it in the chat, that listen, from the first instant, I'm either gone or a serious
intervention
or intervention definitely has to take place. But I'm looking also at just the principle and not necessarily, as you said it before, that, you know, how it happened in this particular situation and how the victim went about it is not prescriptive, but overall, looking at the place that they have come to know, where they can use their experience to help others, I think that the principle is, one of the principles at least, is that even in these situations, there is restoration and restitution. There is some possibility of
redemption
and redemption. And it may not necessarily be continuing a marriage, right? It's just what I'm thinking in my mind.
But Leon, I think that we two things. We have to be careful here, and I know we're in the soundbite era, and people clip half of what you say, take it and run with it. But at the risk of that happening, I want to say, let's be honest though. We can be idealistic all we want, but how many people who are actually in intimate partner violence situations are setting clear boundaries and leaving the relationships? A lot of people aren't. They really aren't. And what I liked about what they did, they were authentic. They broke it down frame by frame by frame to help you to understand why when it happens, people don't leave immediately, and why they keep going back and trying and going back and trying, and they bring you into their dynamic and help you to, and when people invite you into their space, into their vulnerability, take off your shoes at the door, because it's all good and well for us to say all these things, but if we do find ourselves in this situation, how are we going to respond, right? So, okay, great. We all have our soapbox that we go upon and we pontificate about how I wouldn't take that from anybody, da, 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 da. You know what? Praise God, I don't have to deal with it. But for those people who are dealing with it, let's get real. And I feel that's why sometimes we don't really make any change, because we like to talk a lot. But let's be honest. When you are with somebody, especially if the violence doesn't start out at day one, and she was clear, it never started out that way.
Right.
But you into this thing a year, 2 years, and then also the blue person lashes out at you. your first instinct is not anger necessarily. It's like disbelief. Like, what?
In shock.
What just happened? And then
Process.
your minds, and this is somebody you're in love with. This is somebody who you're sexually entangled, emotionally entangled, spiritually entangled. Perhaps there are children involved, significant financial investments. The first thing that's gonna come to your mind is not, I am leaving.
Yeah.
That you know how that might happen if you grew up and saw your parents experience that, and you tell yourself, I don't care what I have to burn down, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
That may happen. But if this is strange territory for you and you're thinking, what just happened? Your brain is gonna try to unpack that first. Then it's going to try to rationalize it or justify or say, well, maybe because I said this, or maybe it's because of I rolled my eyes, or maybe I was being inappropriate, or I was being harsh. And you know what? He especially if he apologizes, oh, he said he's not gonna do it again. And you go through the whole loop of all of that. And then when it happens the next time, and then the next time, until you get into these patterns and cycles. And this isn't happening just to people who are unintelligent or don't know better, or whatever, educated, wealthy, new, beautiful, you name it, this is happening. And it's happening to women, it's happening to men as well. And it's not just physical, as somebody's highlighting in the chat, there's the emotional piece that comes with it too. So sometimes it doesn't go as far as someone putting their hands on you physically, but the words that are said and how they're said, there's financial abuse, there's sexual abuse, there's so many permutations of this, and it's happening around us. And people are not just getting up and walking away.
But to Leanne, we have to take into account in their unique situation, we have to take into account that she never had the safety or felt safe enough to talk.
And a lot of people are bearing this in
overlook
silence.
that piece.
Yes. She said she didn't have a close friend.
She never had a close friend. She did not want to go to her parents because she saw them not as supportive.
And who in our church, pick one person in your church that if that were happening in your relationship, you feel confident you could go and speak to the person and your business wouldn't end up all over the place. Like,
So
let's get real, guys. If it hasn't happened to us, we know somebody it has happened to. Ask yourself why. Why do people sit in these situations and these things happen? It's not as simplistic as you think it is. And we just had the privilege of someone inviting us into their vulnerability and walking us through the different ways your mind, your body reacts or deals with these situations. And I think it behoves us to listen very carefully. And if it's happening in our lives, to unpack it and seek help. And if it's not happening, be grateful and look out for signs that it may be happening in somebody else's life. And make yourself a safe person so that somebody would be able to come to you and say, look, this is something that's happening here to me.
And as you touched on, somebody saying in the chat, it is compounded by
the children.
By children as well. Someone should me a note that says, touch on the part where she said she didn't want to start over, and that some people, they may have to start over, and that's okay. So that's one of the things that she mentioned as well.
Absolutely. And she didn't want to. And we can understand why. I mean,
that's her personal thing.
That's her personal thing. No, but I mean, put yourself in that situation. As I said, you build a whole life with somebody. Now you have to dismantle it and start all over again, right? And then you have children. Sometimes a lot of women think about, well, I have children with this man. He's not abusing the children. When I leave him and if I try to start a relationship with somebody else, maybe that person abuses the children. So you're thinking so many thoughts are going through your mind. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Billy. Pastor Jason. So one of the final questions I would ask, given the time, is how have you considered, or is there an ideal response and intervention that the church should have in these kinds of situations? Is there a policy? Is there
No, I am not
Nothing
aware
written.
that the church has a policy.
Okay.
One from a counseling perspective, and I would almost say supported by a scriptural perspective.
Yes.
Challenging marriage calls for intervention. One of the things I said to a person, the moment you cannot win your spouse, marriage require that I be able to talk to you and you respond.
Yeah.
We are responding to our bosses, we are responding to our customers, we are responding to the police,
Social media.
we respond to social media and the emergency services faster than we respond to our spouse. Everybody get more response
That's a good one.
than the spouse. So when you look at it, one of the things I help people to say now, marriage is a place we should be responding. And the moment your spouse is not responding and you are concerned, you need to discuss, especially at the beginning of the marriage, what's going to be the protocol around response. And so now I talk about, there are things, like the same thing I mentioned in the interview. In the premarital counseling, I say, identify 3 persons. You're going to talk to them before you get married. We see you, we respect you, and we are asking you to be an accountability person for our marriage. And this is if you have big issues. So the thing escalate, the person not responding. You don't want to stay there until the breakdown start to just repeat itself. And if we are getting empowered in this context, I am confident it can be a game changer.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I wanted to touch on, and someone asked a question in the chat a while that's leading me right in that direction, is the need for our men to do the work. And I don't want them to feel like I'm picking on them, but I was inspired last week by our off-camera conversation, so I won't go too much into that. But the need for our men to do the work.
Yes.
Do the work. What I really loved about what P just said, he said, we can try to pin it on the women, in this case, the women, and I'm not trying to single out a specific gender here, but in their case, it was, you could see it was gendered, right? He said, we can say that it's because they're lippy or they roll their eyes or whatever, but really, it's me. When I sat down and owned my stuff, I had to admit that I had a problem. I had an anger problem. I had unresolved issues, and I was taking it out on my wife. Nobody's behavior is the cause of our behavior.
But Christianity challenges the Christian motif in it. Think about the Christian life. You are challenged to hold your position regardless of what's happening.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so even if we don't want to go, okay, super theological, let's go practical. You go to work and your boss says something that annoys you. Why don't you punch him in his face? No, seriously, why don't you do it? Because there are consequences. You can't get away with it. So why do you think it's appropriate in an intimate relationship? Because somebody says something that's annoying to you.
I would quickly add, though, Leon, we are missing this because we constantly take... Jesus is so practical in his stuff, and we constantly feel theology is not practical.
And I didn't mean that to you.
We constantly think theology. Once you touch theology, people say you're theologizing. But you can't. Theology is very practical. It's just that because we don't stop to think about it. Our attempt to do it, we don't realize it's very practical, but you have to apply yourself, and that's where it's hard.
And I love that point about practicality, because I love that balance coming out of is it Ephesians chapter 5, where the instruction is given to the husband, and also instructions are given.
Absolutely.
And this person says in the chat, do we think that submissiveness is probably the problem?
Unsubmissiveness.
Oh, unsubmissiveness.
Meaning because the wife is not submissive. And I'm saying, well, okay, great. So go to work then. And if your boss says something you don't like, slap him.
Yeah, because the thing is that the submissiveness and the submissiveness that the Bible talks about
is mutual submission. Yes.
It works in tandem with the love that is that the man is required to display, to hone, and to actually ensure is at the perimeter of the marriage.
But
And
And
that's
if we're thinking the same.
But
you can't have submissiveness. You can't have that submission.
In unsafety.
Precisely.
Because, but the point came out so well. It was so well defined in the interview where I think Jason had said, we want the wife to give themselves, but at the same time, we're creating a situation where it's a hostile environment for her to be open and vulnerable. And it was very well made.
But
Yes,
I want to
yes.
quickly say this, Leon, and my
Yes.
final comment, since we
Yes.
know some people way ahead.
Yes.
There is no justification for a man to abuse a woman. And somebody asks about, is it lack of
Unsubmissiveness.
is a lack of
Or lack
submission?
of submission, yeah.
The man who has anger problem and needs to work on it, maybe if he's, let's say the wife is not somebody combative, that could be helpful. But that we have seen women being abused in all kinds of permutations. So I wouldn't even go there with that. Because we can't be saying there is no justification and then say it's lack of submission. And men who have issues and things to work out, when a woman is submissive, they suck the life out of them, are passive.
Yep.
So again, we don't even want to go there.
And then the other thing too is that the Bible is clear. He says, men, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave his life for her. Any kind of abuse is not reflective
Of
that kind of love.
Mhm.
And so there is absolutely no justification for that kind of behavior.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things I enjoyed about Pedro. He owned it 100%.
Because as men, if the respect is not there, then something is wrong. Then that needs to be addressed. That needs to be ventilated.
Yep.
And addressed
Separately.
Right. Because to respond to that with violence is obviously not the answer, not the way.
There's no godly template for that kind of
Absolutely.
behavior. None. Absolutely none.
Well, I'm happy that they were very comfortable with sharing with us, and I will definitely encourage persons as well to check out their platform. Did they say what it was?
Yes.
Heal My Marriage.
Heal My Marriage.
Heal My Marriage.
So they have a YouTube, a podcast. They're on
podcast.
Spotify. They're on Apple Store, and then they also have a Facebook Facebook community. Yeah.
Well, that's very good. I think because of the passage of time and persons would have put their comments in the chat, we don't have more live comments necessarily. I'm not sure about YouTube. But if there's anyone else that has a final comment, I'll invite you to do so before we bring our session to a close, and the series actually as well. I'm not seeing any hands, so let me just use this opportunity. Rochelle is here, but she's off camera, to say thank you to Pastor Jason and Sister Edwards for a masterful job as always, in taking us through, guiding us through, navigating these different topics throughout this series. It has been an absolute blessing, not only for me but for everyone. I'm sure I can speak to the appreciation that everyone has for the series and for the principles that were shared, the biblical reminders and instructions that were shared and that were reiterated throughout. It has made our lives, it has contributed definitely to our Christian walk, our fortitude, Christian fortitude, our faith, definitely. And in our marriages, we would have learned so many things and been reminded of so many things that we can practically apply to make our lives or marriages better, or marriages sweet, as you would say, to be producers of honey. And Russell saying producers of honey. Yeah, but you talk about our marriages being spaces where honey is produced, or the sweetness of marriage can be realized. The optimum when marriage operates at its optimum level. That is something that we can achieve through Christ by embracing his principles,
Amen.
by standing for them, and we stand firmly in defense of these principles. So I want to thank you so much for allowing God to use you, for getting our guests, for inviting them on to come to these long discussions, sometimes long discussions, but all of them were kind enough to share, to be vulnerable, to be open, and to be effective by being vulnerable and open and sharing with us in the way that they did. So I just want to say thank you. Again, is there anything that you want to say, Rochelle? Rochelle said I've said it all. Cynthia had to go to a program, and Brittany was on as well. And just before we go, I wanted to just notify persons that we have just before we pray, that we have a very interesting interview that we did for Time Science. It is called From Mennonite to Adventist, from Mennonite to Seventh-day Adventist. It's going to be at least in 2 parts or 3 parts. And the first part is going to premiere tomorrow. And we just wanted to play 30 seconds of the intro so that persons will have an idea what to look for. And we're asking you to share it with others when you see it premiere tomorrow on our YouTube channel, on this very channel, to share it with others. It's very profound, and it reminds us of why we are having these discussions, the importance of the kinds of discussions that we have on Time Science, the principles that we sometimes take for granted. Many persons are waiting with bated breath to hear them. The truth, the gospel, the message that we take for granted, many persons are desirous of hearing them so that they too can come into a saving relationship with Christ. So here is just 30 seconds of the intro.
I didn't just stick with the Mennonites and jump to Everton.
Oh, wait.
Right, I didn't just stick with the Mennonites and then jump to Everton. Right, that'd be a far leap. But
And a lot of times we place an emphasis on growing our children in the church, but not really teaching them to have a personal relationship with God.
yeah. And that's a huge detraction for young people because they're doing something and have no idea why.
Right.
And the curiosity of a young person, they need to know. They need to know.
Especially
Especially now with access to information. Right.
At what point during your studies did a shift take place? Did any one of these faiths that you researched, did anyone stand out to you and why?
Or appeal to you.
Well, after studying many of the different denominations, I did my deep dive into the Mennonite faith, into our history, where we came from. And that leads to Martin Luther and the Reformation and him translating the Bible. And that whole debate between translations.
Right.
So that was my next deep dive, was Bible translations. Where did they come from?
Right.
Who were the people behind it?
Right.
The different translations. And that led me to Walter Fight's series, Total Onslaught.
Oh, Walter Light.
Okay.
Total Onslaught.
Yes.
Okay, I know that series.
Yeah, that video title pops up, Battle of the Bibles.
Right.
Curious.
Right.
That's interesting. That's an interesting title.
Right. Yeah.
Click.
Yeah.
That is where everything changed.
Everything changed, yeah.
This went on for months.
Right.
Right. Studying deeper. Trying to prove it wrong.
Yeah.
Because particularly when it came to the Sabbath and certain things, right? Mark of the Beast, all these questions.
Right.
You don't want to be wrong.
Right.
There's a sense of pride.
Right.
But there's also a desire to know the truth. And thankfully that outweighed my pride.
Right. Oh, sorry. So, so this is a very interesting story of a very recent situation where an entire Mennonite family became Seventh-day Adventists or became either members of the church or Sabbath keepers, and here in Alberta. And so you will hear more about this. It will premiere tomorrow. And so we want to invite your support for this. Pastor Jason, could you therefore bring our series to a close with any final thought and prayer?
We just want to say thanks to the fans,
The Time Science family.
Time Science family. I think we have an unusual set of individuals who are very committed. We're across different time zones, and our programs go beyond times often in a bid to get out the story and facilitate discussion. We thank you for the commitment. I want to say just thanks to Leon and the team for allowing us to share what we're sharing and get the messages out. These stories are necessary to be told. Marriages, we did Warriors, the series.
The last season 1?
No, this.
Intimacy Warriors.
Intimacy
Warriors. My mind went blank.
Yes.
It's a fight, and we need to hear about people who are winning.
Yes.
We need to hear about people who are winning.
Yes.
And people who have allowed God to guide them through the hardship. Tonight's story was hard, but when you look at people who are ending for all kind of silly reasons, we need to celebrate those who are staying in it. We may not agree with them. We may not have been able to deal with that based on our makeup, but we need to celebrate the people who are staying in that fight and fighting to the end to save it, to honor God, and to even repent of their past. So I'm thankful. This story tonight for me, it shows transformation from a place where the marriage wasn't life promoting to start to promoting life. We see the orbiting dynamic where the two people at a distance, but the orbit is closing. We see the honey dynamic where it starts to get sweeter, it's safer now. And it was a real fight. They fought against each other until they are now fighting as one. God be praised, God wins. We're thankful for the lessons. There are some pieces of it that may have been jarring for us, but this is a beautiful miracle in my estimation. Ellen White says, no relationship is too strained that God cannot bring about reconciliation. We need to celebrate the miracles that we are witnessing. So that's my final piece, I'll say. Any thought for you, Vinny?
No, I'm just happy to be your wingman, your wing woman. Yes, it's always fun to connect with the family on Time Science, and I thoroughly enjoy hearing the stories of people journeying through the valley, because that's where love is forged in the valley. I firmly believe that, and I'm just excited to see what these conversations produce in other people's lives. I know there are people listening who are going through or about to go through or have just come out of these, and I encourage you, when you're converted, strengthen the brethren.
Lovers in the valley will mount up with wings like eagle. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
All right. I guess the next episode is going to be mounting with wings.
Next season 3. Is that a teaser? Are you teasing?
Man.
You're teasing season 3?
Mounting with wings. You want to hear those who are flying.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I'm going to ask you to pray.
Me?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, we'll pray. Dear God, we thank you. We lift you up and we magnify your name. We're so grateful for this opportunity to be with our Time Science family for a couple weeks to talk through love, how it's forged in the deepest, darkest places, and how your Holy Spirit is constantly striving with humanity to demonstrate the love of God through Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit living in each of us. We thank you, Lord, for these wonderful persons who are willing to come live, be vulnerable, share their most intimate, painful parts of their life in a bid to demonstrate your love and the power of your love to redeem humanity. So we thank you, Lord, and we celebrate them. We celebrate with them. We respect their stories, and we commit ourselves to being authentic enough and humble enough to learn from these stories. We thank you, Lord, and we just pray a blessing over Time Signs, over this platform, over everyone watching and listening, so that your name will be glorified. The truth about you will continue to go forward, and that in our homes, in our lives, in our families, we will seek to be ambassadors of the kingdom of God. We thank you, Lord, and we bless your name, and thank you for this wonderful Sabbath through Jesus Christ, who is indeed our Lord and Savior. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your company. We'll be back in 2 weeks because every other week we'll be having a series of discussions on current events and Bible prophecy, the applicability of Bible prophecy and relevance for us today. So we look forward to having your company with us. See in the chat our different platforms. Partner with us, help us to grow and to declare the word that God has given us to declare in this time. The three angels message in all its forms, including in the form of lovers in the valley. Thank you. God bless you. God be with you. Enjoy the Sabbath and have a wonderful day tomorrow. God bless you.
I pour my oil on your feet, anointing the one who's anointed me. I saved it all for you. I saved it all for you. I just wanna kneel and honor you, pour out my praise and gratitude. I saved it all for you. I saved it all for you. Seasons come and go, but I can't let go of this moment, holding you so close, telling you how much you're worth it. Everything I owe to you, and I will freely give it. I saved it all for you. I wanna make your memory of people that loved you with everything. I saved it all for you. I saved it all for you. All my affections not for sale. Jesus, you have it, always will. I saved it all for you. I saved it all for you. Seasons come and go, but I can't let go of this moment, holding you so close, telling you how much you're worth it. Everything I owe to you, and I will freely give it. I saved it all for you. Master, Savior, only you are worthy. I'll put no but I can't let go of this moment, holding you so close, telling you how much you're worth it, everything I owe to you, and I will freely give it. I saved it all for you. I saved it all for you. I saved it all for you. For you.